So listen, they're playing games with the show. I just want you to know this. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. But welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I knew this was going to happen. And I forewarned about it on the last live show that we did. We're waiting for Scott Ritter to get in the queue. I just sent them another text message. Rashid has just sent me, my co-host Rashid has sent me a text message saying that he's not getting the links that are being sent to him. So I told him to hold up. I've been resending links to everybody. And what are the odds that this happens on this show? And if you go back and listen to the last live show, Rashid and I actually laughed about it because we were talking about when we did the live with former CIA analyst Larry Johnson. And as Larry and I were talking and chopping it up on the truth, if you notice, Rashid did not come into the picture or come into the conversation for about 45 minutes or something. It's because the links that he was using were no longer valid, or he wasn't getting the links. And so we sent them a link live on the air. And it just so happened he went back and found an old link and got on the air. And the link that we sent him on the air, and that was at 12, I believe. He got it at 12:57 after the show was over. So we know the lengths that YouTube goes through to prevent the show from being successful and to frustrate our viewers and new subscribers. But as I said, I'm waiting, and while we're on the air, I'm going to contact Scott again. Because also, let me say this, YouTube was saying, and I'll take a screenshot of this because I want you to see this. It was on the television. Let me see. Let me take a screenshot of this. See if I can get it real quick. All right, let's see. Remove this out of the way. Oh, we got it. So I'm going to show you guys something in just a second to show you that I'm not bugging. Give me 1 second. Let me get the picture for you, crop, so that you can pay close attention to this, and save. Now, I'm going to bring this picture up for you guys. I want you to see it. Look at the time. I want you to look at the time that YouTube says my show starts. I want you to see it. Well, if you can't see it, it says 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. YouTube is still showing that 7:30 p.m. It's crazy, right? Knowing that the show starts right now. So if you give me a second, let me contact Scott again and see if he's gotten the links. They're trying to prevent the show from coming up with a lot of things. Hold on 1 second. Here we are. 1 second. All right. And I sent them so that you'll know. Let me see. All right. Scott Ritter. So that you'll know that what's going on. So in one instance, YouTube has the show coming on at 7:30. Another instance, the links that we're sending out through StreamYard are not coming through. And another instance is the beginning of the show, they muted me. So we have to work through these things. And to be honest with you, if I was scared of truth, And if I had a lot to hide and I was a liar and I wanted um to live off the ignorance of others, I probably would do the same thing. That's a recipe for fascism and dictatorship, to prevent um alternative voices of opinion, alternative views, alternative aspects of life. That is like living in a totalitarian government or a dictatorship. The same thing that they go to war around the world trying to prevent other governments, as they say, from becoming or trying to dictate to their people what to do. They're doing it right here, right at home. So I'm getting another text from Rashid. I hope he enters the booth. And thank you guys for staying patient. We're waiting for Scott Ritter. Seeing if the links go through. I might have to send him links 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 times. More times, I should say, because it looks like they're not getting the links that we're sending through StreamYard. It's crazy, man. This is absolutely crazy. How many times have you seen a show where not even the co-host can access their link? I'm asking these things because it is abundantly clear that the powers that be, they do not want this show to grow. They do not want you to hear the truth, and they do not want the guests to appear on the show, right? But also, I want to say this also while we're talking. Later on Patreon, we're supposed to have Mark Dankoff. I hope he received the links that we sent, multiple. And these links we've been sending over just days, not just now, but over days. So there should be a lot of links, but we're learning that most of them are not getting the links. Why is that? And why is it my show? I don't have 40,000 subscribers. I don't have 100,000 subscribers. Why is it this show? So it has to be a reason. They see something, they hear something that is frightening them, and they don't want the message to get out, and they don't want you to see that, hey, there's another rational voice out there. We thought we were in the wilderness by ourselves. We thought that only we thought this way. We thought that no one was speaking to our grievances. No one was speaking to the complaints that we have. But you have it right here and right now. So we'll wait to see if the co-host and Scott Ritter. I'm getting a message right now. Hold on. Okay. I'm learning how to do these things. And the audience is going up and down, up and down, up and down. Why is that? Well, I tell you what. They are doing everything, but it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get chopping until the links can go through. All right. So let's go into the news, because we were talking about, are we headed to war? Right. Uh, we're talking about escalation. We're talking about, are we headed to war? It seems as though the powers that be understand this much about what is going on globally, that they have put themselves in an untenable and unwinnable economic and political situation. And on either side, they're being smashed through the greed, arrogance, corruption, entitled. They think they're entitled, right? And exceptionalism. So they're boxed in their countries into this narrow walkway, and they're being crushed on either side because of the policies that they've implemented and continue to double down on. I was looking at an article today and on Sputnik News, and Vladimir Putin, it reads like this. It says, Ukraine has been turned into a tool of US foreign policy, has practically lost its sovereignty. Not practically, but in reality, it has lost its sovereignty because it is NATO and it is really the US and the UK which dictates which policies they employ and put into action. So we saw this about this so-called dirty bomb, right? We saw this about the dirty bomb. Now, I've heard all these alternative media sites say this. When the British Defense Secretary flew to Washington to meet his counterpart and to go over some things in this hurried rush meeting, maybe it was because Vladimir Putin's defense secretary and chief of staff told them about the Ukraine's plan for a dirty bomb. Now, the problem with this is that almost every alternative media disconnects the US and the UK from the problem. And they say, well, the US or the UK had nothing to do with this, and maybe these are some rogue elements doing this. And the US and the UK are now getting on those rogue elements or something like this. Now, I want you, how believable is that? I'm asking you all. Think about this, because they have not processed everything. So I want to give you another view, okay? And finally, Rashid is in the queue, and I'll bring him in just a second. So hopefully, Scott Ritter will be in the queue too. My co-host has just made it in the queue, and I'll bring him in just a second. But listen, let us look at the situation of the Ukraine. Every alternative media site was saying that Ukraine is under total Western control. We know that to be true. There's no dispute about that. It is the US and the UK, quote unquote, NATO, that dictates policies to Ukraine, the far right movement, and Zelensky. Is that not right? Is that not the going understanding of it? And they say that Ukraine's intelligence agencies are embedded with US, UK, and NATO intelligence officers. Now, with all of that said, are you telling me that the United States and the UK had zero understanding, zero knowledge that the Ukraine was preparing a radioactive or radiological bomb to explode to bring NATO in? Now, mind you, let us put this stuff in a perspective now. All while the U.S. has deployed the 104th Brigade of its Special Forces to the Ukrainian border, all while NATO is now patrolling 24/7 with AWACS over Poland to scan for intelligence, all while U.S. satellites are pinned down on that, and they also have ground intelligence. The U.S. and the U.K. and NATO had no understanding that that was about to take place. That is a hard pill to swallow. Not only, I'm going to put something forward to you. Not only do I believe they understood what was about to take place, they were the plotters and the planners of it. Because some Russian intelligence says that when Russia called these Western nations, they also said that they have proof that there was some UK involvement in this. So how can the alternative media detach the US and the UK from this? I'm asking you all for a minute. Let's put our biases aside. Let's put our we might like this show, or we might like that show, or we might like this host, or we might like that. Notice how they're always thinking rational. on things, and then when the big picture drop, it escapes their reason. Why is that? Why is that? You have to ask yourself these things. With American and NATO running rampant across all of Ukraine, with the AWACS and the intelligence gathering apparatuses, from the satellites to troops being stationed not just on the border, but some are crossing the border into Ukraine, you are trying to tell me and make me believe that the United States of America, who can pinpoint a penny from space on the ground, and the UK is colonial brethren, had no idea that Ukraine was preparing a radiological bomb to explode and blame Russia, especially while NATO is deploying troops to Ukraine's border and up in the rhetoric. How does that even make sense? I mean, rationally, how does that make sense to you? So now, if it doesn't make sense to you, you have to go back and ask some of the people that you listen to and that you watch the shows, why does this make so much sense to you? And it doesn't make sense to me, but everything else you can rationalize. But you're trying to detach the UK and the US from this when they are in control. It has been proven that the United States and the UK are pulling the strings. How can you detach that? Let me bring in my co-host Rashid, and hopefully Scott will come through. Because I'm while we're building together, while we're talking, I'm going to reach Scott again. Okay, Rashid, how's it going today?
Great.
Oh, I ask you. Let's be rational about the situation. We have for months, for what, 8 months since this war has been being prosecuted. All we have heard from the alternative media is that Zelensky and the Ukraine are puppets, and the strings are being pulled by Washington, Brussels, and London, and that they have intelligence agents all over Ukraine. They're embedded in every element of the government and the military. And all of a sudden, when it's about a radiological attack, and Russia warns the West, makes these private phone calls, that same alternative media detaches responsibility from America and the UK. How rational? I mean, how can you even process that? What is your thinking on that?
They all are a part of the American people. Most of the alternative media, the American, they don't want to be associated with doing this type of evil around the country and around the world. So when they say that, what they want to do is to div, take America out of the lexicon of doing these evils. You know, America's not the one that we don't know if America did it. Yeah, everybody knows. Like if we go back to the emperor's new clothes, everybody must see the emperor's naked, including you.
Right.
But you don't want to admit this because it gives America an evil picture around the world. And then most of them work for inside the American government. It's like somebody talking bad about Wall Street after making billions of dollars on Wall Street. You are a part of Wall Street, and that's what that is. They don't want to. They don't want to admit that the emperor has on his new clothes. I mean, his new clothes, he's really naked. That's what it is. It's plain and simple.
Right. So, what do you think? And I pretty much have been given some backdoor information on what was taking place outside of what the mainstream and the alternative media apparatus are saying about that situation. I've been told that Russia, I mean, not calmly, but intimated to them that they understood where this was at, who was involved, and if this takes place, then Russia would take this as a nuclear strike against the Russian Federation, and that the West would bear all of the costs of what this entails. And that is why the Russian ambassador to the UN came out and says that Russia would see this as nuclear terrorism. And we know what Vladimir Putin has already said about if weapons of mass destruction or a strike against Russia or Russian forces, um, even if it's conventional, if it is a massive strike, that would be considered a strike that would free Russia's hands to use hypersonic and nuclear weapons against those who are backing the elements in Ukraine. What do you say about this situation?
Russia knows what the empire and her minions cannot understand is a lot of the people in Ukraine are Russians, right?
Right.
Don't you think that Russia, a lot of those people will tell Russia what is going on?
Right. I'm listening.
A lot of them, a lot of the people in Kiev are Russian spies.
Right.
You can never trust a person who's allied to. It's like say in America, if Russia had a bunch of spies over here in America, they are Americans. Somebody is going to turn and going to have some patriotic inclinations. Somebody is going to tell the other side what you're doing.
Right.
The Americans, they're in a catch-22, bro. That's exactly what it is. Everybody will tell on everybody else. You can never trust somebody that's on the side against you. If you're gonna go into a country and everybody else is with the like with in Ukraine, half of the people are Russian. So naturally, somebody in Russia the Russians gonna get the information. They probably know exactly. They probably know all of the people down the line that's doing it.
Right.
And then to come up and say that, well, it's not me. We don't know nothing about that. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Now, the reason I ask that is because these trustworthy alternative news sites all are saying this. Well, I won't say all, I'll say most are saying this. What would be their incentive after telling the truth and gaining so many followers? What would be their incentive to then hide this from their viewers and their listeners?
Deep down, they still are Americans. Deep down, not one of these alternative media people want America to go down the path they do. None of them. America is on a path of collapse, total collapse. And I don't care how much you're against the empire. Most of them will tell you, I'm still an American. Mm-hmm. I want America not to go down this path. I don't want America to be seen around the world as, like Larry Johnson said, the bully. They don't want America to be seen. They don't want America's true face to be shown around the planet. It's an ugly, a hideous character. The daughter of Babylon, it was really, although she looked beautiful and delicate and stuff, but her true face was hideous.
Right.
Nobody wants that to take place. They don't want America to be shown as doing all of these. America trying to start a nuclear war. They don't want that. You can't blame them for not wanting to America to go down that path.
That's right.
And they trying to hide it. That's all that is.
Right. I'm
like
waiting.
You got some of them come up talk about the Republicans and Democrats. The Republicans are tails. The Democrats are heads.
And they're the same.
It's still a quarter.
Yeah.
Their aims and goals, and it's still the same. Under Obama, he was stirring up trouble with Russia.
Right.
Under Bush, he was stirring up trouble with Russia and Iran and the rest of it. Under Trump, he's stirring up trouble with China, America, and the rest of it. They're not changing. They're all the same people.
Right. And you think about this. Bush pulled out of some of the international agreements. Obama pulled out of some of international agreements. Trump pulled out some of the international agreements. And Joe Biden has kept in that spirit. And look where it has pushed the people. Well, look where the world is. I mean, these people are sociopaths. I don't think most people realize this. I remember years ago someone told me, they said, for a person to want power and to hold power that long, or to disregard human life while they're in power, they're sociopaths. And what we're seeing are sociopaths. And what they are, these are the punks when they were in school, the little sissified people that was picked on. And now that they've ascended to positions of power, they
They're gonna make everybody
disregard.
pay.
That's right. They disregard
Everybody gotta
all the
pay.
spirit of everybody.
From that point, from the school all the way now, everybody that dissed them must pay. And so what the rest of the world is saying that, like Rouhani of Iran said, well, they ain't got nobody can change their policy. The rest of the world is saying, will the real American true face stand up? Which face do you have? Bush's face is just like Obama's face, which is just like Trump's face, which is just like Biden's face. There's no different than them.
The only difference is sometimes Trump will go off script.
Because remember what we said before, he is not a politician.
Yeah.
He wasn't schooled in the fine art of saying one thing and doing another.
We'd like to thank you all for joining us again. We're waiting for Scott Ritter to get with us. I continue to hit him up, and maybe he's preoccupied at this time, but I'm trying to see if he's going to still be able to make the show. If not, he may want to reschedule, but we'll try to stay on as long as we can until he joins the cast, okay? And we'll let you know. And as you can see, I'm in the emails, constantly viewing the emails to see if I can get or a text message to see what is the holdup. Because I know, as I was telling the audience, when I send you links, just like today, I sent you about 20 links, and you just got one of them. So
or like I was listening to Gonzalo Lira and Scott and Larry Johnson last night, and somebody he was talking with in the chat room said that Gonzalo Lira said that I'm going to send you the link so you can join the show. An hour had passed and the cat never got the link.
And see that's what we're saying. We're up against this, and this is how you can see who is really trying to get the people the truth, and who is faking for subscribers and for an audience and for donations and for all of that stuff. What we want to do is enlighten you to the reality of the time, because everything is moving towards escalation. And it goes back to something that I was going to address right before you were able to get into the chat. And this is this. With the economic situation deteriorating so rapidly that the West cannot.
Talk to Tanisha.
The West.
I'm doing a show.
Hold on 1 second. Let me mute you 1 second, because the West is so desperate to try to maintain their rule or their way of rule. They're so desperate that they are now lashing out at everybody and everything to keep their rule. And just let us look at this. Why is America in everybody's business around the globe? And wherever you see America intervening, her sister nation, the UK, is right there. Yes, that's right. And remember, in the Western press, they are never wrong. Think about this, and I like to put these things on your mind as we talk about this, because critical thinking is something that is lacking in today's society, and that is why the situation has deteriorated politically and economically so much, because people are not being critical thinkers. They are just going along to get along. If Russia, it resides in, well, most of it resides in Asia, and maybe 20% resides in Europe. So we see the Eurasian continent, or landmass, and we see that Russia sees on its radars that NATO, meaning probably the United States and Great Britain are flying spy planes right close to the air border, right? And then we see warplanes constantly flying around. And when Russia sends up a warplane to shadow that, the Western media and the US and the British elite or the government says this. They phrase it like this: Russia was very aggressive. They came very close to our warplanes. But nobody says, well, where were your warplanes at? All America says is in international space. They don't say that, you have a 12-mile area where it's considered your airspace. Well, America bumps right up against the 12-mile airspace area and then complains that Russia planes are right on its tail and say, well, we've lobbied a complaint against Russia for its aggressive, its aggressive actions, and they become more aggressive and more aggressive. Now, America resides 10,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away. But it is Russia the Western press frames as being aggressive. The same with America, as she sends senators and congressmen to excuse me, let me see, this might be. I thought it was. It wasn't him. It was another. Jim Fetzer. Also, let's say we're going to have Jim Fetzer on the show on Friday. Okay. So Rashid, I'll unmute you in just a second. So again, I was bringing a point home with America and NATO, and in the East, in the Western press, the victims are always the aggressor, and the aggressors are always portrayed as the victim. The United States recognizes this. Think about this, because critical thinking again. The United States under Richard Nixon recognized, this became U.S. policy, Taiwan to be a part of China. And now America is saying that China is being aggressive towards Taiwan, trying to retake Taiwan. Well, your policy states that you officially recognizes Taiwan as part of China. So what business is it of yours? What if China got involved in California or got involved in the dissatisfaction of the Texans or way America is running her border? What if China says, you know what, regardless of what the United States government says, we're going to send delegates in through Mexico up into Texas to meet with the dissatisfied groups about how the borders are left open? America would think that this was of the highest provocation. But because she has been on that exceptionalism thing, she's been inebriated with what she used to be, and the power and the influence and the wealth that she used to have and used to be able to exert on others, that she does not look at it like that. She looks at it as, do as I say and not as I do, because regardless of what you do, if I deem it to be unjust, then it's unjust. But whatever I do is benign and benevolent, no matter how many people I kill, no matter how many governments I overthrow, no matter how many countries I bomb. That is absolutely insane. That is, and the Brits are like that. The British government is like that, and the Western governments of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada are all like that too. This is racism. This is exceptionalism. This is classism. But more than that, it shows you that something's not right in their brain, in their thinking, the leadership, because the leadership's policies are detached from the people's policies.
Yes.
Which is absolutely insane. The people, why does any one of you ever think about this? Do you ever think about this? Rashid, I'm going to let you comment on this. So I'm gonna unmute you and I'm gonna let you comment on it. What say you about this symptom that they have? it seems like to me that it is a mental disease, a mental disorder to think that I am and there is none other. I can do, but you can't. You must listen to me dictate to you what you can and cannot do, what you must do and what you should not do. Are you there? Are you there, Rashid?
I
So
go
we're
back.
okay. There we go. Say it again.
I go back to what I've been saying before. I'm the king, and the king don't recommend. You're my subject. You do what I tell you to do. Period. Now, Russia will be considered a duke in the empire's kingdom.
Right.
China would be considered a duke. The duke is right. He got a kingdom, but he's up under a king. And the king rules all of it. If the duke do something that I don't want to do, I can replace you. You get out of line, then I got to send my army over there and overthrow you. And this is the mindset that he got. He's been a king so long that he can't see what other people else point of view. Only thing I can see is what I want to do. Now, what if Russia came up to Mexico and said, America, you stole Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico. And I say that's unjust. So I'm not recognizing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Mexico and give Mexico all of the weapons that I can, including the kitchen sink, to bomb you in your neighborhood. And every time you would turn around, you look up and you see a bomb going over Washington, Atlanta, or Boston, you wouldn't like it so well, would you?
That's right.
It's outrageous. They sending bombs over here. They doing exactly what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because I'm exceptional. I can do that, but you can't do that because you ain't exceptional.
Right. Right.
I go back to what I've said before while I was muted. Remember they asked George Bush Jr., have you done anything wrong while you're president? I don't think so. Anything that you can say that you didn't like? I don't think so. They asked Donald Trump that. Have you done anything wrong? No, never done anything wrong. That's the mindset of this man.
But and if we think about that and we put that to Syria, America goes in there, she's stealing the resources of Syria right now, and she's redeploying ISIS wherever she wants to, from Iraq to Syria, from Syria to Iraq, from Iraq to Ukraine, all over the northern horn of Africa. And most people don't realize this, that in Yemen, Israel, the UK, and the US have occupied a strategic island in that area. They have also waged covert war on the resistance in Yemen in the most fertile and resource-rich area of the country. Now, what is that for freedom? What is that for liberty? What is that for sovereignty? What is that for liberty?
Have you heard anything on the mainstream American media about this? It's like it never happened. They over there stirring up all of this trouble with the Shah's people in Iran. Every time you get on the look what all of the mass protests in Iran. Well, when you have protests, you never hear it on the mainstream media, right? Europe right now is having protests about the gas, cutting off the gas with Russia. The people of Europe can see that this one is somebody's going to be extremely cold. But do you see that on MSNBC, Fix News, or ABC, or NBC? You don't hear a word about that. Tens of thousands of people are saying we're going to starve. We got no gas, and the gas, whether you know it or not, without the gas turbine to push the gas, you got no electricity. Europe is going to be without electricity, and they're going to freeze to death. They're cutting off their nose the leaders are doing what the people, the empire tell them to do. They ain't doing it for the people. That's for that democracy stuff. If the democracy was so great, then why are the leaders doing opposite what the people want?
As that German foreign minister said, we don't care what our people say. We're going to continue to
do what we're ordered to do.
Yeah, which is crazy. So when the only time, and this is a point that I'm trying to make to you all, the only time democracy really matters to the Western world is when they can use it to their advantage to gain power and a foothold over someone whom they deem to be their enemy, adversary, or
lesser.
Yeah.
So somebody that can't defend himself, just like Gaddafi. He was a good brother, but he wasn't the sharpest bulb in the briar patch. After that silly son of his convinced him to get rid of all of his weapons. You got no weapons? We got rid of them. Then America said attack. That's when she attacked. She waits until you weak, then she comes. Well, I can't go over there while you got all that stuff. You might defeat me.
Hey, isn't that the case with Iraq? Isn't that the case with Syria when America entered the Syrian phrase when they verified that Syria had finally got rid of all of its biological and chemical weapons? And hold on. And isn't that the case with Russia today? What did they openly state? That we want to use Ukraine to bleed them dry and to hurt the Russian military so that they'll be in a weakened state. A weakened state for what?
I can come in and start bombing.
So this is what we're looking at, and it is absolutely insane. Nobody talks about this. I've listened to all of the other platforms, and you can barely hear the people talk about these issues. Maybe some don't know, maybe some omit it, maybe some just don't want to tell you. But right now we're at 0 hour.
What it is that we uphold a standard of telling the truth, no matter who it hurts. Right. The truth only hurts the guilty.
That's right.
And even if it hurt us, we're gonna tell it to you.
Yeah. Yes. So again, we're hoping I sent out another link to him, hoping that he'll get the link and come through all the while we're talking. And if he doesn't, then I'll hit him up tonight and I'll see about rescheduling the show, because he wanted this time at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time. So maybe something came up, or maybe, and I can accept that something came up, or maybe they're just not sending the links to him, like what happened to you. But again, we are at 0 hour. Why? And for those of you who are in the chat, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, or if you have a comment, put them in the chat, and I'll highlight some of them and we'll address certain things. But I do want to highlight this one right here. As we were talking about insanity and the sociopathic leaders, this one came up. And we also, this one that's just going off the screen, we like to thank you for joining us from Japan. We like to thank you for joining us from Japan. When we were talking about the sociopaths, and we were talking about how insane these people are, this came up in this, and it says that describes Anthony Blinken. Not only Anthony Blinken, it describes the entire administration, because you have to understand, Newland and her clique, she's married to Kagan, who is one of those Project for the New American Century and all of that stuff. And a lot of these people have root in parts of Moldova or Ukraine or that area over there, or Poland. And they have a
Newland grandfather them come from Ukraine. Even a big Nefervinsky people come from Poland. All of them right around there. They all see the same, and they hate the Russians with a passion.
Yes, and they are the ones who driving the policy.
That's right. And for this Democrat and Republican stuff, right? Newland was in the Clinton administration, in the Bush administration, in the Obama administration, in the Trump administration, and now he's in the Biden administration. So what is the difference? The people that's making policy always stay there.
Right.
All it is just a different face. America switches a different face when the president come in, but they're all the same guy, all the same people. Their policies never change.
Yeah.
And to pull that Mutt and Jeff deal about I'm a Republican. No, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. No, you are the same guy with a different face. You know, Batman had back in the day, Batman had a character called a false face. It's the same guy, but he would pull off his face and give you another man's face. Same guy.
Yeah. And our other viewer writes, paradox is that the less censored platforms are Telegram and TikTok, one Russian and one Chinese. But no, don't say that, because remember, those are dictatorships, and this is the home of the free, right? I understand exactly what you're talking about. The hypocrisy. See, even our viewers understand the hypocrisy of a nation. America talks about freedom, and while she stumps out freedom at home. And any nation that she goes in, she removes freedom.
She's been a nation for what, 200 and something years, 250 years or whatever. All but 9 of those years, she's been at war with somebody.
Yeah.
That's what democracy means. You come in and steal your natural resources, rape women, enslave the population. For 50 years, I just went and stole Iraq. I'm going to have 50 million people working for me for nothing for the next 50 years. That's democracy for me.
Isn't it ironic, as he said, isn't it very ironic that America talks about the dictatorship, so-called, of Vladimir Putin in Russia and Xi in China, and yet they have a freer expression of rights over there than they do over here. And people need to examine this instead of listening to the rhetoric or the propaganda I call the media describes of the leaders, of the kings, because what they do, all they do is transcribe what the leadership says, and they never mention their source. Well, I have a source that told me this source says this and this and this and this, and then
the anonymous source
is
always around, right?
It's crazy.
Always around, and then what you have is the dictators are the people that don't like America. The Saudis, they're not dictators, right?
Right.
The immigrants, they're not dictators, right?
Right.
Even Erdogan for a minute ago, he wasn't a dictator, but when he do something if I don't like, then he's a dictator. Right? Pinochet of Argentina and all of those South American, they wasn't dictators.
You know why? Because America put them there. That's why they weren't dictators.
Right. That's why they wasn't dictators. I think this was who was this? Franklin Delano Roosevelt was talking about some dictator. He said he might be an SOB, but he's our SOB.
Yeah. E. Walker says Russia has won the economic portion of the war. They did. They have won it, and this is why America is now up in the ante. See, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. She's enjoyed the privilege of having the world reserve currency, meaning that she can export inflation and cause upheaval around the world, whichever country that she decides to. She could manipulate prices. Which means that she could cause rebellion in nations across the globe. On top of that, she had the greatest military power, the greatest manufacturing power. She was the largest trade part in the entire globe. But now, with all of those levels of power being removed one after the other, it has caused consternation, fear, and panic in the world of the West, of the elite. And so there was a study that came out last year. As I said, there was a study that came out last year, and it says that America did a military study, and they said they had up from 12 to 18 months to prevent China's ascension to power. After those 12 to 18 months, they would lose out completely from that point on. Now, guess what? If my calculations are right, it's been between 12 and close to 18 months since that took place.
As you were saying, even before, this shows the delusional of the leadership. You didn't push China and Russia together. They've been together for years. China is not going to sit around and say and let you jump on Russia and say, "Oh well, bad. They defeated Russia." No, China understands if Russia goes, I'm next.
Right.
And even with this guy making this deal, it's set in stone. It's too late for that. As I said before, Nixon and Kissinger were smart enough to keep these great powers apart. If they unite, we can't stop it. But the leadership of the day with these delusional nuts and fools and pedophiles and senile leadership, they remember when Obama was when Biden was running for president, right? He had a 4% of the Democratic populace voting for him. Nobody wanted Joe Biden. He was, and then this what's that nut in South Carolina, that Clayton, that silly politician, right? Him and Clinton got together and one told all the other Democrats to step out because we don't want Bernie Sanders to get the nomination. Step out and give all of your support behind this with Pepe Escobar call him a crash test dummy. The guy that goes to sleep while he's talking.
Right.
And this is why.
No, hold on. The guy that did a speech and then shook hand with empty space. You remember that?
This is why Donald Trump was so limited. I can't lose to that guy. that guy is a walking empty suit.
Yeah.
He could accept losing to anybody, but that guy, it had to be stealing.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Henry Wallace back in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Wallace was a politician who was the main force behind Franklin Delano Roosevelt legalizing labors. Remember, without the labor unions, you wouldn't have a 7-day work week. You wouldn't have a 5-day work week. You wouldn't have a 8-hour day work, because they was working people for 12, 14. You wouldn't get no overtime.
Right.
Henry Wallace was behind most of the progressive policies that you have today. The work system that was set up back then is really what you're going off today. And they knew Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I didn't know he died at 62 and a half years old. They knew Franklin Delano Roosevelt health was waning.
Yeah.
And his vice president normally is the one that takes over after he dies. And so a bunch of Democratic hacks got together and threw Henry Wallace off of the ticket and put Truman in there, who was one of their men from Kansas City, Missouri, and put this little what they call it. He was a little man with a little man's complex, mad at the world. Everybody that's over him is a bad guy. Yeah. He was a very sharp guy though, but he still was mad at the world, and put that nut in there. And the same thing happened in 2020 when the Democratic deal got together, pushed Bernie Sanders out and put Joe Biden in. And that's what that people voting stuff means. It means nothing.
Right. Now let's go to a comment on by E. Walker. He says, "What did Malcolm X say about the media? Have you have you hating the victims and loving the perpetrator?" Which is true. I mean, this is what they do. They turn. I call it again. I call it Bizarro world because we know that Bizarro is the opposite of Superman, and we know that when Superman goes up, Bizarro goes down. And his world is upside down compared to Superman. Right is wrong, wrong is right, in is out, out is in, square, circle, circle is square, and all of that. And this is what that is. The media, eh, they have no foundation to stand on anymore because even the most ignorant people are scratching their head and saying, well, if Ukraine is winning, and if Russia is losing and in such a dire situation, and that the Ukrainians will be in Moscow in about 2 weeks, then why do we have to deploy troops to the Ukrainian border and threaten Russia? And why do we have to continue these sanctions if Russia's losing? Just let Ukraine go on and finish them off. And then in the same breath, the media will come out and say, oh, we thought Russia is running out of missiles, and Russia ups the missile strikes. And then they'll complain about the missile strikes in the same breath as that.
And then it's not the Russian military missile. They got them from Iran.
Yeah, yeah.
But wait a minute. Ain't you giving Ukraine everything they have?
But even more than that, check this out. Let's look at America's reasoning. Let's look at this because I always tell you, we do critical thinking here. And we refuse to allow you not to do critical thinking. Because when you refuse to do it, you become lazy and you become a victim to other people who are using critical thinking. If Iran, look, the United States says that Iran is giving Russia drones and missiles and stuff. But wasn't it right before this conflict started that America said that Iran was a backward nation with no real good technology and that she couldn't produce anything that would be viable to wage a war? Isn't that what she just said just months before this took place? So how can it be both? How can Iran have military, listen to this good, have technology, because these drones are unstoppable. How can they have drone technology that is so advanced that US and Western technology can't pinpoint them on radar, can't stop them in the air?
And they've been sanctioned for 40 years.
40 years.
They got no technology.
And I thought, well, and why would Iran be exporting missiles to Russia when Russia has the most powerful and the longest range missile in the world?
It just don't add up, do it?
But when you do critical thinking,
if the mainstream media tell you something, if they told you it was out at 12 at noon and not a cloud in the sky outside, you have to go outside and make sure that the sun is shining. That's how devolved they come into telling the truth. The lies that they tell even make it, like you say, you can't got to scratch his head and say, that ain't even the dumbest of us would have to scratch his head, whatever they tell you. And they double down on their lie. One lie leads to another lie, leads to another lie. And then pretty soon they just keep lying, and you just a sane man say, I can't believe anything they got to say. Right. Like you said about Malcolm, the victimization of to victimize the victim. The victim is the one that's doing all of the trouble. I come over to your country and bomb up just listen to this. I go 10,000 miles away from my country and bomb Iraq, Afghanistan into as they call it, the Stone Age. Yeah. And the people that defending themselves from my bombs are the bad guys. Yeah, they're the terrorists.
Or look, hold up. Let's go a little further. Let's go to Syria. America has ignored international law, ignored national sovereignty, and ignored the will of the Syrian people and the Syrian government, and invaded Syria and took over an area of Syria where it's a lot of gas and oil over there. They have military bases over there. And check this. They unilaterally imposed a 50-mile no-fly zone, no drive zone. Russia has ignored it, and it's gone even over the base. Russia ignored it. But they said that they have the right. Listen, I just want you to understand this. I'm going to give you an analysis, and then I'll finish this thought, because the analysis will give you an insight of what they're doing. So check this out. What if I break in your house, and then I'm there to steal your valuables, and then you try to fight against me, and I shoot you, and I'm shooting the people in your house, and when the police come, I say, oh, I pulled out my gun because it was self-defense. Do you believe that that would be taken as a serious statement when the police come to get you, and that you and when they put you in jail? Do you think that there's a viable defense against the rules and the court of law? Well, if that is not a viable defense, then what in the hell makes America thinks that she can say this and people will just grasp onto it? She says, as bombing takes place, well, we're entitled to self-defense. Hold on, you just broke in somebody's house. You're stealing their valuables. You're holding a gun to their head and you're shooting their people. How in the hell is that self-defense? 5,000 miles away. How? I leave my house. Rashid, you're in California. That's you live 2,200 miles away from me. I leave my house and break in your house and start shooting up your family, and I tell the police when they get on the scene that it was self-defense. And they ask, well, what are you there for? Oh, I was there to protect his valuables. Well, did he tell you to come there to protect his valuables? No, but I thought so. I would do so. Do you believe that that would be a viable defense?
International law is for the other guy. It's not for, remember, I'm exceptional. It's not for me. It's for them.
Yeah.
You got to follow the international rules. What about you? I don't have to follow anything. Look at what he did in Syria. I mean, in Ukraine. Russia is bombing this apartment. Oh, look, the children. Then a couple of months before that, they sent a drone and blew up an entire family in Afghanistan. And you ain't hear one word of the mainstream media saying it was horrible. It was horrible. He just wiped out a whole entire family with 4 and 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. Mm-hmm. You didn't hear him say nothing.
Right.
But that, as we're taught, he who controls mass media controls the hearts and minds of the people.
And so we have another comment by, and I hope I'm not butchering your name, so please forgive me if I do, okay? Facade. And he says, or she says, China has 5 army bases in other countries. Russia has 36 army bases in other countries. The U.S. has over 850 bases in other countries. This is exactly what we're talking about, the hypocrisy. Now, and this point, I'm going to get to this point right here, right now, because I'm glad this viewer said that. Now, the Pacific Islands, they were tired of being abused and relegated to scraps off the table with the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and the Western world. So they struck up a deal with China, for China to train up the police forces, for China to supply them with the necessary means for their military, and also to invest in their businesses in their infrastructure. And China would visit those nations with military ships and naval hospitals to help treat the people that they can treat. America, Australia, New Zealand, and NATO was livid. How dare you do this? How dare you? If you set up a military base there, then we would take that as a threat, a declaration of war. We would not be silent. But I thought you respected the sovereign decisions of sovereign nations. I thought that you said, right, that every nation has the right to make his own decision. Didn't you say that about it? Ukraine, when you pulled Ukraine and tried to get her in NATO, you said every nation has the right to make his own sovereign decision, and no one should interfere with that. But what about those nations? What about, aren't those nations also? Aren't they supposed to be sovereign? Don't they supposed to enjoy? Aren't they supposed to enjoy the rights that are enshrined in UN Charter and international law? Well, where did this go when they wanted to um, go with China's investment plan and to become more allied with the Chinese than they were with the West, because they saw that the West was colonizers and they were what we call um, succubuses or parasites. Where did international law go? Where did sovereignty go? Where did the right to make your own decisions go? Where
When he bombed Libya, where was international law? When he bombed Iraq, where was international law? When he bombed Syria, where was international law? When he bombed Somalia, where was international law? When he's bombing Yemen, where is international law? When he's over there stirring up trouble in Ethiopia, Congo, Mali, all these countries around the world, even with the Philippines, where's international law? I don't see not one MSN media, news media telling now America done a bad job by going over there killing all of those people up and stealing their land. Not one word. But the second anything happening in Europe with Ukraine, they freak out. It's like the house is on fire. You don't go and take a country's territory. That's barbaric. Haven't you been doing this for the last 10, 15 years? You ain't said one word to me. And then what they get up there and then run around holler about I'm a Christian nation. Right?
And
all of the leadership. Now, as we say before, if you follow Christ or Jesus, would Jesus bomb up those people?
Would Jesus take their resources? Would Jesus get on the news?
Would Jesus enslave their women? Would Jesus rape all of their women? Would Jesus really do that?
Yeah. So we're looking at a pot that's boiling over, because you see nation after nations turning eastward, and it is not predatory by China or the Eastern Bloc. What they're offering a viable plan, but to be honest with you, most people don't know that the plan that they're offering was actually a plan that Muammar Gaddafi, the former leader of South Africa, and Robert Mugabe put together. What you're seeing in play with the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union, that actually was born through the African Union with the plans for Robert Mugabe. As a matter of fact, Egypt was involved. It was South Africa and Libya.
What about Ben Ali with Tunisia?
Yeah, this was all there, but the core people, and it came from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Egypt, and Libya. Those were the core, and what they were trying to do is build a financial infrastructure outside of colonial domination, outside of Western power, outside of
the dollar hegemony.
But this is what happened, and this is what most people don't want to hear. And listen, when we do this show, we don't do this show with a eye to just pick on one people or the next people. We do this show as a way to give you the truth and to enlighten you to what's going on. What happened was the European Union and the United States, along with Australia and New Zealand, got together to formulate a plan to stop the United States of Africa. See, the Eurasian Economic Union and the BRICS and the so-called Belt and Road, all of that stuff was actually born out of this. And I'm telling you why and how. They got together and they know that Africa is a resource-rich continent. I mean, has unlimited resources. And they know that this was the memory gland. This was the memory gland. Hold on. Oh, this was the memory gland of the Western world. The Western, whenever they needed some resources, some natural resources or some mineral resources, they would go in there, disregard Africa, take the resources, and exploit the labor. Listen, and I have to tell you this, and everything that I'm saying, you can do your own research and Google this, okay? And so, go ahead, say your point, Rashid. I'm gonna fix this light,
They
and then I'm
got
gonna come back on
together
this.
with the plan, and the plan was called the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was the plan to stop it. You there?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
fixing the lighting. The lighting has moved a little bit. The wind from the air conditioner blew it in his, and I'm trying to fix it. Hold on one second.
Okay. The plan was called the Arab Spring, and the Arab Spring was to bring down this united. What they wanted was a united currency of Africa, backed by gold. All of Africa would have one currency.
But it wasn't just backed by gold. That's the big misconception. It was backed by gold. That would be the main thing, but it would be backed by all of the resources that Africa has, whether they were in storage or whether they were untapped resources. It would be backed by that. And what most people don't realize is that this was a threat to the rules-based order or the Western world, because what it would do overnight was it would flip the chessboard over. The poor nations or the third world nations
would become rich.
They would become rich overnight, and then those nations like Europe,
the succubus or the Nosferatu, would become poor.
They would become, because they had no resources to back their currency. They have little to no commodities to back their currency, and this was a threat to the international order, and it was a threat to the United States dollar. Because listen, if you start seeing the dominoes collapse, France, Germany, Belgium, the UK, and down the line, and the currencies collapse, all the euro and the pound is tied to the dollar. This would have a huge effect, because listen, the African Union is the second largest trading bloc on the planet, not the European Union, the African Union. And America and Europe would no longer be able to go in and trade with these nations on an unequal basis, and they would have to bring more to the table than what they did, and they did not like that. And let me tell you why. Because they still view Africa and Africans as their subject. That's the main thing.
There are slaves. Now,
that
just think of this. Just think of this. How in the world can Europe be a great rich country with no natural resources? It's mind-boggling. They got no gas. They got no cobalt, gold. It got usually nothing. But the people, the place that got all of that, they're poor. How in the world? It makes one scratch your head. Because of his fake money. Like we said, that Ponzi scheme that he just set up.
And that's what they're fighting for. This is what I'm saying. I have to come, because that's what they're fighting for. Again, this is one of the main reasons that they're doing what they're doing in Ukraine. They wanted, Zbigniew Brzezinski formulated the policy that the U.S. is following right now. He said, if you could remove Ukraine from Russia, you could prevent Russia from becoming a viable power or reemerging as a equal power to America. And Ukraine outside of Russia had lots of coal, it had minerally rich agriculture, and it had an industrial base. And if they could pry that away from Russia, then it could hold the European Union together, and it could also weaken Russia, and then they could turn their attentions to China and go after China, and after finishing off China, they can then go back and double back around and finish Russia off. That's what their game is.
Also, Crimea, Russia's only warm sea port.
Right.
If he could get rid of Crimea, and Russia would be considered a second-rate power. And that's in his eyes. So he's been plotting and scheming all along. He's never thinking 1 minute about how to rule and dominate somebody, because he's been riding the horse of leadership for so long that he cannot see himself stepping down and letting somebody else ride. I'm on top. And whether if someone else comes along and tries to take me off, I will kill everybody.
And you know, this is why this goes back to something we discussed earlier about the deployment of the 104th Airborne over in what is it, Moldova? They're in and Moldova is not even a NATO nation, but they have them on the border with Ukraine. Now check it. One of the reasons for that is they feel threatened that Russia will seize the rest of the coast of Ukraine and cause it to be a landlocked nation. And if that happens, listen,
Odessa.
Yes, if that happens, right, then all of the Western plans to make the Black Sea into a NATO lake goes out the window. And that is why the rationing up of tension is coming. And that's why the United States is constantly beating the drum of if we warn, now they make up straw men. We warn Russia not to use nuclear weapons or there'll be severe consequences. Now they say that knowing that Russia has never threatened to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, but they have to use that straw man to justify to the people at home their policy of containment with Russia, or because he's a madman threatening to use nuclear weapons. But the only people that ever use nuclear weapons
is him.
It's him. Hold up,
that little hack.
No, this is the big misconception. I have to tell you this. The big misconception is that the United States is the only nation to ever use nuclear weapons. That is a lie. No, it is NATO nations. Listen to me. America used nuclear weapons in Japan, but I was invited by Cynthia McKinney on a fact-finding mission in Libya. I couldn't make it because I have to finish this point for the audience. I was invited on a fact-finding mission with former two-time Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney before the real outbreak of hostilities between NATO and Libya. Now, I didn't go, but afterwards, when I interviewed Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney on another platform, she talked about in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and now we know for sure in Libya that NATO was using depleted uranium rounds. Well, what is uranium used for? It is used as the core of a nuclear bomb or a radiological bomb. So you have all kind of birth defects in these nations, and you have parts of areas that is uninhabitable because it had been inundated with rounds of depleted uranium. Those are miniature nukes, whatever somebody say. So when we look at the situation and say the United States is the only nation, yes, she's the only nation to use a nuclear bomb, but she's not the only nation to use nukes. Along with France, Britain, and the rest of the NATO, the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, they have used it in Iraq. Some say in Syria. We know they've used it in Libya, and they have used it in Afghanistan. So we have to correct that. We have to correct that right now.
Brother.
I'm listening.
Who runs NATO, brother?
Oh, yeah. That being said, I know that. But what I'm saying is we can't let these other nations.
The other ones go, but NATO was what, 95% America and the rest of the cats are just following along.
Yeah.
It's still America's. NATO cannot make any policy without Washington's approval.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got the minions following along with that cartoon, the minions. Yeah, the minions are doing it, but the head guy, Gru, is the one that's telling everybody what to do.
But guess what? In the Nuremberg trials, they didn't care if you took orders to do X, Y, and Z, right? They put you before a council, they tried you, and they executed you, even if you followed orders of your government. This is what I'm saying. We cannot allow the minions to get off the hook, even though
I agree with you. But even with the Nuremberg, the West ignore all of that. That's for the enemy. That's for the loser. The Nuremberg trials. Ain't none of them for me. They had this what do they call this international court for the justice when somebody do something wrong. America, we ain't signing that. If our people go and do something wrong, ain't nobody is going to be over our people. So as we said before, those laws are for you, not me.
Right. Also, I want to say this. I noticed all during the show, we've been dropping viewers and stuff, and I already know what it is. So when I get this text message or the email, I already know what YouTube and StreamYard does. I already know this. We tell it to everybody on the show that they're going to suppress the numbers. They're going to disconnect you. They may disconnect us. They're going to buffer the stream. And we don't even know if Scott Ritter is getting our links, due to the fact that this is what they do. But I want to go back into the chat. Inisfad said, did you know that the globalist WHO, meaning the World Health Organization, pandemic treaty has failed so far because the African nations refuse to sign on to it and give up their sovereignty? Yeah. I was unaware of that. See, we learn from each other. I was unaware of that. And I'm the first to say it. When I don't know something, I'm not going to make you believe that I knew it. Thank you for informing me of that. I did not know that. But bravo for them for not surrendering their sovereignty. If you look at the Horn of Africa, the northern part of Africa, you'll see that they're moving towards independence and they're trying to shed the shackles of colonialism. And China and Russia is moving in. You notice every government, they're getting smaller. This is connected also to the geopolitical pie. I got to say this, because we're talking about Ukraine, we're talking about Europe, we're talking about China, we're talking about Latin America, we're talking about all of this. So I have to say this. It seems to me that some of these African leaders up in the northern part, they're getting it now. What they're doing as they ask for the West to respect their sovereignty, knowing that they won't, what they do, they push the people of their nations to protest loud enough that some Eastern media outlets starts covering this, right? And then that is a justification for them to invite Russian contractors in to protect the government from assassination by colonial powers or overthrow. I think that is a very brilliant thing. And then after they have like the Wagner group in or Russian troops in, then they become more vocal and more bold in their pronunciation and telling that we want France out, we want Canada out, we want Germany out, because a lot of you don't know that Canada occupies parts of Africa, Germany occupies it, Belgium still occupies part, all of the NATO nations still occupy it, and all of them are trying to continue to extract resources.
What we were told about the countries that find it hard to get out of Africa: America, England, France, and Germany.
And Italy.
And Italy.
He said, oh, thank you. He says the 102 is in Romania. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure which country that it was, but I know it was a surrounding country. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate, man, these guys on fire up here telling us this stuff. I love this. When we feed off of each other. This is beautiful. Let's go to some. He said, man gets it. Oh, yeah, we thank you. We thank you for joining the chat. We thank you, and we hope that you become a regular on the chat and a regular on the show and regular on the videos and everything like that. Let's go to something else. This is from we'll put this up here too. This is from Who's Goose the Moose. I like that name too. It says he's quoting what I said, the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. Thanks, I love that. Well, that's what it is. It's the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization.
It was set up just like the UN.
I'm gonna go into that in just a second. I'm gonna go into that in just a second about the UN. I'm gonna go into that. That's what I was gonna transition to. Just hold on. Let me get this right here. Let me get another one. Oh yeah, yes. Let me pull this up. This is by a guy Reef Omar, always supporting. The U.S. even passed a law to invade The Hague if any top American officials are ever held there for war crimes. This is true. They would, for them always talking about bringing other people to the so-called international court, and which is crazy, is because the international court resides in a place that is guilty of a whole bunch of international crimes. But
and the only people that go to the international court are the Africans.
Yeah, and so and that's true. And some like, and well, not all, but some, like you have
the guy in Yugoslavia, they dogged him out.
Yeah, Slobodan Milosevic.
But he wasn't a part of the clique, though.
Yeah,
he wasn't a part of the garden nations.
Yeah, he refused to bow to him, and that's one thing.
And that's what got him over there.
And they killed him. They pretend like he had a heart attack, but they killed him. But yeah, that's a good point, Reef. And we have to understand that the international court is only used to prosecute those who violate the colonial powers, dictates, and mandates. That's what it's for. It's not really an international court. It's a colonial court used to demonize, victimize, and exploit those who dare buck up against the authority of their colonial masters. Now, on that note, I'm going to go back down the line on the comments here, but I want to that is a good point for me to transition to the UN. I guarantee for you all who are listening to the show, we address all kind of touchy-feely subjects. As you saw on our last show, we talked about the Man Up movement and where black men and black families need to stand up and do this. See, we'll point the finger at them, but we also point the finger at everybody else where it needs to be pointed also in every case. And most people don't do that. So I'm going to talk, and I'll bring Rashid in about this just a second. It'll only take me a few minutes to get this across to the people. The United Nations, which was a byproduct of the League of Nations, right? It was set up, and it is a racist organization by birth, and I'm going to tell you how. Most of you are unaware of this, so I'm going to refresh your memory, or I'm going to ease your mind with some truth. When they had the idea of the United Nations, they didn't want a Muslim nation there. They didn't want a black nation there. They didn't want a non-white nation there, and they did not want a Eastern nation there. But they had to put Russia in there. So listen, I want you to understand how unfair the United Nations Security Council is. You have the U.S., you have Great Britain or the U.K. That's two, right? You have France. That's three, right? You have Russia. That's four. What they would call four Western or white nations, right there. They had no intentions on China being a independent member of the Security Council, because they had plans on Chiang Kai-shek ruling China, right? And what they did was, when they were surprised when Mao Zedong and his people pushed Chiang out, right? So the Chinese by default, the Communist Party by default got the voting rights in the UN Security Council. This is written in their doctrine. I'm telling you this, that they had no intentions on a non-white or non-Christian nation having a seat at the United Nations Security Council. It was only by default that the Chinese got that.
Because Chiang Kai-shek was a Christian.
That's right. Most people don't know that.
Big time Christian. Another one of those guys who say one thing and do another.
Yeah. I follow Jesus all the while stabbing somebody with a knife. I follow Jesus.
That's right. Stabbing somebody. Once again, Jesus was a peaceful man.
That's right.
Jesus said, take your money and give it to somebody, and let's give it to the poor. Let's go help the poor. Now, how many Christian nations do that?
Hey, listen, and check this out.
Show me one American president that gave all his money away and went over and started doing missionary work to help somebody.
And so listen, most of you were unaware of that the United Nations was not set up for China to be an independent thinker, independent voter in the UN Security Council. They wanted no non-white, Western, or Christian nation on the board because they wanted to dictate policy to the entire world. And this is true. You can go look in the doctrine. When they founded it, you can go look at all that. I mean, it's there. So saying that, we know that if we know that and we look at the rules-based order, we see that it was inherently racist. It was inherently tilted toward the exceptionalism and Western dominance. And that's why in all of the international organizations, the Western nations have the most clout and the most voting rights because it was set up that way, right? Think about this. The people who vote in the UN Security Council outside of China, France, the UK, America, and Russia. If you add all four of those countries up, and the people that they represent make up less than 1/8 of the population of the planet Earth. Yet they dictate all international rules and everything to the entire population of the planet of the Earth. And they can override the General Assembly, which is more representative of the world. They can override any mandate that the General Assembly gives. How fair is that? How fair is that? So we'll go some more. Let's see. We'll pull up some more. I had to say that and then we're going to go to this. We're going to go back to this Russian thing in just a second. So we have this, and I'm trying to. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Here we are. We're on the next one. Who's Goose the Moose? I love that. Look, that is a catchy name. So I love that. It says they, talking about the U.S., beg out of the Hague court system. Makes you wonder, Exactly. They want everybody else to be held to that standard, but they refuse to sign the treaty to hold themselves accountable.
Excuse me, Moose Goose the Loose. They are the exceptional country. Remember, their rules don't apply to everybody else now. You never forget about that.
So what we're saying, if there's no way that you can look for a fairer world if the people, and I'm talking, when I say people, I'm talking about the leadership,
ruling class,
the ruling class. If the ruling class are able to dictate the new order, they're just going to rebuild what they have. So they have to be removed. The policies that they have to be removed because this is an infectious disease. And I liken them to vipers or venomous snakes. Once they give you the propaganda is the venom, and the fangs are the media. Once the fangs hit your mind, they inject this propaganda or this venom into most people, and it causes the people to become woozy and near death. They become like zombies, right? Because they cannot think critically through any of this stuff that we're talking about. But I got to say it one more time. Who's Goose the Moose? I love that. That's cool. That's a clever play on words. But let's go to something else. He says, okay, he has another. It says people are catching on to these facts. That's why all the protests in EU. Good info, thanks. But no. Who's Goose the Moose? If we listen to the Western media, there's no protest in Europe. There's no protest in the United States.
If it's not on television, it really didn't happen.
Remember, we must be lying. You must be lying because we're telling you about protests. You're telling us about protests. But the Western media, the fangs of the snake, says there's no protest going on in the Western nations.
Except the people of Russia. Everybody in Russia is leaving because they got to be drafted into this war. They are so much against this war that Everybody in Russia then just packed up and moved to the EU.
Yeah.
Everybody,
No,
nobody wants this war. What did they
yeah.
have yesterday? Some little puppet they didn't gave a few nickels to that used to be part of Putin's government. He said that Putin is losing his mind for having a war against Ukraine.
Yeah. So who's
You can see that on the MSN. Or either the Iranian girl that died, like the guys, like the leadership said, all them people they didn't kill in Afghanistan, Iraq, Israel, Palestine. You don't see not one person protesting that, but one person get killed in Iran and the whole country got to go up in smoke.
Now, who's Goose the Moose? How dare you? How dare you say that about what's going on in Europe or what's going on in the United States? How dare you say that the protests are going on? This is what they look. This is how they look at you. But you know it, and I know that that's what's going on. But they're trying to suppress this because they want the people to be docile sheep, willing to go to the slaughter. That's what they're doing. Let's go to something else. I got to go up a little bit. We have more comments down, but I have to go up. Someone says, "Oh, he says he come by way of Canada." Hey, man, like what? How do they say? Hey, or something like that. I can't say it, but I do love one of your Canadian YouTube channels. Retired working for you with Chris over in Thailand. I think that is one of the best YouTube channels on YouTube. I watch that every day, and when I go to have coffee with my mom, I go over her house. We sit down and we watch that. That's one of our favorite shows, and he's a Canadian. So let's go to something else. Down a little bit. Let's see. Some Innisfod says, just coming over here after seeing your interview with Larry Johnson. Thank you so much, and thank Larry. Larry's a stand-up guy too. And we're going to have him back on the show soon too. And we don't know why Scott is not on the show. I'm going to hit him up again. When you see me looking down like this and you see me turning to, I'm texting him again or emailing him, sending him the links again. Again, Rashid just got a link.
Remember, they don't allow people to come on these type of shows. They keep them away from us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, you send a link for somebody to come on the show, and then it might pop up 3 hours later.
Like what happened to you?
What happened to me?
So that's what we deal with, and we apologize. But from yesterday when we streamed live, I even alluded to that something may take place because I kind of felt it because when Rashid and I talked about how it took 2 hours or 2.5 hours for him to get the other link that I sent to him, and he's the co-host. I kind of felt that this was going to take place, you know. But I'll contact Scott. I'll keep contacting him. But let's go with some more. The Monroe Doctrine. This is breaks. Let's see. Break the silence. Says the Monroe Doctrine. Put it in quotes. That's right. America believes, but not just America does not believe that she just rules the
half the Latin American country. Yeah. She feels she got the whole entire world.
She has a Monroe Doctrine for the entire world. This is why she says, and notice nobody ever calls her on this. America must lead the world. America must be in the strength of leadership. America must do this.
That's what Barack Obama said. We must write the rules.
So
we must do it.
That's exceptional.
Because once again, they've been riding that horse of leadership. That they are the ones that tell everybody what to do. And if what he said, if anybody come along and tell us and emerge as a power that can threaten us, we must stop it. That's and this is what's going on in Russia. They see that, well, actually, to tell you the truth, other than the mainstream media, the Russians got the strongest military out there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And China has the strongest economy out there. And those two are uniting. And the American empire is freaking out. My God, we're not the top man on the planet anymore. And so they're lashing out like, I tell you exactly what they are. They are a drowning man. And if anybody go near a drowning man and try to pull him out, he's going to pull you down with him.
Mm-hmm. And so
the best thing you can do is step back and throw him something, a life raft, a little life preserver or something. Because if not, you going down with him. And this is exactly what he's doing to Europe.
Yeah.
Can't you see that he's dragging Europe down to the abyss of nothingness like he is? Yeah. Russia supplies all their gas. Natural gas pushes the turbines, most of them push the turbines to make electricity. Without natural gas, you do not have electricity. That means BMW got to close. Porsche.
Mercedes.
Volkswagen.
Audi.
BMW.
Audi.
All of them got to close. All of these electrical plants and stuff. I mean, all of his gas, all of his supply chain. Yeah, all of that. All of his industry must shut down. And Europe is the poor fool that come along and try to help that drowning man up out of the sea. And now they're getting drugged down into the abyss of nothing.
But the people of Europe are saying, let me go. And the politicians are saying, no, we got to.
Because they are bought off.
Yeah.
I was listening to Gonzo Lira and Larry Johnson last night, and he was talking about what Europe and the leadership of Europe, of Germany, what they fail to realize is Germany is an occupied country.
That's right.
Germany, the leadership of Germany, the leadership of Iran, of Japan, they can't make any policy on their own.
Right.
They don't run the government. They might run the so-called government, but they got thousands of American troops in their country to make sure that they never step out on never step out on their own.
Yeah.
The leaders of Germany are, what's his name? Schultz. Schultz is no more of a leader than Gavin Newsom of California.
Yeah.
He's a governor of a country. He can't make no policy for nothing. He got to take orders from the rulership, the leadership.
Right. And so I want to talk about what Break the Silence is about the Monroe Doctrine. I got to bring this back to this. What most people fail to realize is that America does not, in this day and time, see the Monroe Doctrine as viable for just the Western Hemisphere. They are hell-bent on imposing the Monroe Doctrine the world over at all costs, regardless of the casualties. Remember, Hillary Clinton and even Madeleine Albright, they dismissed the loss of lives in Iraq, and I believe it was worth it. Well, you're talking about 1 million children died. Well, it was worth it. See, they don't care the expensive lives that are lost. They don't care about the destruction of governments, the destruction of infrastructure, the destruction of civilizations. Just like when America got behind France and boosted Sarkozy to go into because they couldn't do it with America because it was a so-called black president in office. So they had to hide behind Sarkozy, and they pushed Sarkozy to go into Africa, into Libya to bomb. Now, they did this. They put a black president there as a figurehead because they wanted to go back into Africa and they wanted to mask it under a black president. They wanted, we're going along with our NATO ally France. But it was all America from jump. And so they did this to remove the key nation to that so-called United States of Africa in the gold-backed dinar. That's what they did. And they're going to do that to Europe too. America does not care if Europe national security is a threat. If she did, why the hell is she putting bases right up there next to Russia? Why does she continue to expand NATO? Why does she continue to threaten the largest nuclear power on the face of the planet? Why does she continue to send weapons into Ukraine, knowing that Russia sooner or later will get fed up. Guess who gets hit first? It's Europe. So how in the hell can you think that America care about the sovereignty or the security of the lives of Europeans? If they did, their actions are not showing it. Their words may show it,
What did
but
Henry
their
Kissinger
actions are
say?
showing it.
That America enemies as deadly to her enemies, but to her friends is terminal. Right? Her friends are in the worst position than her enemies are, because
Yeah.
she'll drop them at the drop of a hat. She don't have friends. She only has people that she can use. That's
Subject.
it. Subject.
Subject.
That's all it is.
Let's see.
And also Latin America, they did it under Hugo when Hugo Chavez, as I call him, Hugo Baby Chavez, was around. They had a lot of people that was against America, and now all of them are on the side of Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Even Colombia president is now on the side of Venezuela. And when Lira come back in and get rid of Trump Jr., all of Latin America gonna be against the empire, just about. They got a few little minions like Paraguay and maybe some little bitty off but the majority of the Latin America, we're taught that the Latin America are the 10 horns that's gonna come after Babylon the Great at the end of time, and it's all been put in place.
Who's Goose the Moose? I got you. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry about revealing the protest." He said, "My bad, non-sheep here." I got you on that one. Check this out though. You brought something up about Latin America. Do you know that the United States has just sanctioned Nicaragua again and sanctioned the gold industry because Nicaragua was refusing to sell gold to the United States and the Western world, and they wanted that some of that to be held in Nicaragua, and that they refused to bow to the European Union dictates. As a matter of fact, they refused to accept the U.S. ambassador that came to Nicaragua after he got his accreditation, because everywhere you see color revolutions at, that guy is there.
It ain't John Negroponte, is it?
I forget his name. He's under him. He's under.
Oh.
And check this out. And so they also declared several people from the European Union's diplomatic staff as persona non grata, and they had to leave. And now, following the United States sanctioning of one of the main commodities that's needed, which is the gold industry, to try to keep it in the ground so nobody else can benefit from it, right? The European Union has now followed up with sanctions on Nicaragua. But this man was elected by a huge amount of people. I thought it was about democracy. He's only reflecting the will of his people. He was elected by the majority of the people. And I'm not talking about how European and American leaders are elected with 40% and 50% of the people.
And 39 and 28.
These people like Assad was now the Carter administration verified the elections in Syria and said that President Assad got roughly 79% of the people's vote. Now they also verified that Vladimir Putin got like 69 or 70% of the people's vote. We have Hugo Chavez got nearly 80% of the people's vote, and we have Maduro, he had like 60% of the people vote.
But he's a dictator now. Don't forget.
But these are dictators. Listen, if you follow the line of the Western world, if you follow the lines of the leadership of the Western world, you are crazy as hell, and you need to be reprogrammed, because it seems like the programming has tweaked something in the brains of the masses of the people to not understand that the empire in the Western world are doing this because they're fighting for their survival to be number one. They don't want to be number two. They don't want to be number three. They don't want to be number four. They don't want to be number five. They must be number one at all costs.
And also, they didn't printed up so much money that when the dollar finally does collapse, you know, you used to always talk about how bad the peso is, or take 1 billion pesos to make $1. The American dollar gonna be looking up at the peso, saying how great of a strong of a currency she is.
Yeah.
But getting back onto this sanction stuff, like the top general of Iran said, sanctions, keep on sanctioning me. If you find me got any of your money, you can have it. We're going to sanction it. All the rest of the world have to do is stop using his money. Then he can sanction you to the cows come. It means nothing.
That's right.
It means absolutely, because his money is, once again, a promissory note, the promise that I will give you something in it value for what the goods and stuff I've given you. If you don't have nothing in value, how can you give me anything?
Right.
You got no natural resources. You got, even what it say, I think you said this earlier, that Russia and Ukraine, 75 or 80% of the fertilizer, or the world's fertilizer, come from them, right?
I think it's 60%.
Huh?
I think
60%?
Something like that.
Come from them. You don't even have fertilizer to grow your own crops. But yet still, I'm gonna sanction you. Let him keep on sanctioning. It's like some man in a delusional state about what he thinks and everything. Just let him. They need to put him in a rubber room with one of those straight jackets. Just let him keep on. If everybody else get off his dictates, then he's nothing.
Yeah,
he's
I'm gonna highlight some
down
more comments.
Enough.
I'm gonna highlight some more comments, but I want you all to be patient with me. I'm still trying to contact Scott, see what's going on. But at the same time, I want to bring something up by the guy who he coined the phrase full spectrum dominance. F. William Engdahl. Okay, this is an old clip. It's about 8 minutes, and I want you to see what he has to say about the situation that America is facing. All right, because a lot of you don't understand just how bad the situation is. And remember that this is roughly over 10 years ago, okay? And if it was that bad then, guess how bad it is now. Remember, the debt situation has exploded. The homeless situation is growing. The unemployment situation is off the charts, right? People are having to choose between, and this is not just in America, this is in Europe also. You have to choose between whether you're going to skip a meal or pay a bill or get your medicine or have some healthcare problems looked at or something like this. This is something that is rapidly overtaking the Western world. But he says something in here, and I hope this is the clip, because I haven't looked at these clips in a while. I want to play this clip. But the title of it is not even Jesus Christ could help or could save America from what's going on the Western world, from what's going on. I want you to listen to this, okay? It's very important. And after that, we'll talk a little bit more, and then I'll hopefully Scott will be with us, and then we'll highlight some more comments and discuss. And we want you to feel free to comment in the discussion box so that we can highlight your comments and we can all discuss this, because we're no more important than you are. We are all equal in this thing. We're trying to enlighten everybody, just like I've been enlightened by a few comments that's been on there. Okay, and we appreciate the interactiveness of the chat, and don't think we don't. We really appreciate it. So I want you to pay close attention to this.
Joining us today is best-selling author and economist William Engdahl. He's been writing on issues of energy, politics and economics for more than 30 years. Thank you for joining us today. Recently, we've seen several American banks beat forecasts and record an increase in profit. So is the worst now over for the world's economy?
This is by no means a sign of the end of the crisis. I estimate that we're perhaps 40% into the losses alone in the U.S. real estate sector. And these banks are, when we talk about the banks, we're talking really about at most 7 or 8 huge institutions that are at the center of this crisis, and not tens of thousands of smaller banks in the U.S.
So in your opinion, do you think it's too soon to be optimistic?
It's absolutely too soon to be optimistic in the U.S. The U.S. is the heart of a global problem, the core of the problem. And U.S. financial and banking deregulation since the end of the 1990s is the proximate cause of the problem. And that is a process now that is going to put the U.S. into what I call 10 years of hell. It's going to be worse in some respects than the Great Depression of the 1930s for most Americans. And everything that the current administration and the previous administration have done about the problem is merely going to make it worse for the actual economy.
So now let's shift to Eastern Europe. Now you've written at great length about the drama that's unfolding there. So could you perhaps paint us a picture about the situation there at the moment and which countries are most affected?
The problem in Eastern Europe is if you will, a derivative problem of the problem of cheap credit coming out of Wall Street over the last 7 years. And as the Fed lowered its interest rates after 2002, partly to create this real estate bubble and to feed the Wall Street banks' securitization process, the interest rates worldwide came down, the European interest rates and so forth. So banks in Europe were able to borrow money very cheaply and lend it out to Eastern European countries that were in the European Union, like Poland or Hungary or the Czech Republic. I don't see it as the same kind of crisis as the derivatives-driven crisis in the U.S. banks, because there is a real housing deficit after 50 years or so of the controlled economy, command economy, under the Warsaw Pact Soviet Union era. And people do have jobs. This isn't derivative speculation off the books. This is simply normal banking loans. And what the EU governments have done in one form or another is to step in with IMF funds. I'm not a fan of the IMF in any way, but the purpose of the funds was to stabilize the currency so that it doesn't become a speculative target and make the crisis worse. I think for the moment it's quote unquote under control. It doesn't have the leverage potential that the American crisis has.
And Russia is currently in a similar situation, with rumours that many banks will soon go bust if more negotiation doesn't happen with the West sometime soon. So what do you think is the best option available to Russia?
Russia has to, and this is, I think, one thing that the current government and when Vladimir Putin was president, I think he very much tried to do, is to bring the crucial elements of a sovereign nation back under state control. That doesn't say going back to the era of central planning communism, but certainly to control your currency, to control your credit system. These are things that any sovereign nation should rightly have. And in terms of the banking crisis, perhaps there are some banks that would do better if they were nationalized. If the losses are too great, at least nationalized so that they could be then cleaned up from the toxic waste and the bad investments, and that the real economy comes out of this as the healthy factor and not pure financial speculation for the good of a few oligarchs at the expense of the Russian economy and the Russian people.
So how long do you think it's going to take before we see the end of this recession?
The point is, we're at an epochal change. This is something that happens perhaps every 400 or 500 years. This isn't a once-in-a-decade recession that we're living through. And I call it in my new book, which was just released in German, the decline of the American century. This is a terminal decline, as you had with the British Empire after World War I. And it wouldn't matter if Jesus Christ were the President of the United States today. There would be nothing he could do to reverse that decline process. You would almost have to reorganize and start from scratch, because the cancer of this financial system has embedded itself so deeply that they've destroyed industrial technology in the United States. They've outsourced manufacturing over the past 25, 30 years to Asia, to Eastern Europe, all over the world. The American elite has rotted itself from inside out over the past 30, 40 years, since the early 70s. So Europe, including Russia, very much so including Russia, or let's say Eurasia. Eurasia is a vast continent which has every resource man could imagine for anything that we would want to build economically. It has the brain power, it has the scientific talents. We haven't totally destroyed that, as has been the case in the U.S. And that is all we need. It has the raw material. Russia has unlimited technology for unlimited resources of natural gas and oil. The Russian geology is light years ahead of American and Western geology, geophysics, let's say, because it is based on real earth science, real physics, and not on hocus pocus to hide the fact of how much oil the world has. So there is nothing that's lacking. The decision in the Western Europe, in the European Union, is for many European elites, I know this from discussions here in Germany in the recent years, they have to make a choice, and they're schizophrenic about that choice right now. Either strengthen the Atlantic Alliance with Washington and go down with the sinking Titanic called the American century, or carefully try to reorient the supertanker called the European Union and build bridges of cooperation with Russia above all, with China above all for economic markets and whatnot.
And what are your thoughts on the US President Barack Obama? Do you think he is the man to control this situation?
No. To my mind, and I said this in print a year before Barack Obama became president, the American power establishment since the time, at least, of Abraham Lincoln, with the possible exception of John Kennedy, has never allowed any candidate to get near the White House who they don't totally control. And that we see that in the case of President Obama.
There, because it's very important. This is what I was telling you. If your alternative media keeps talking about how much power Obama has, in reality he has little. He's just a figurehead. This is what I continue to tell you. But he says that the powers that be will not allow anyone to get to that office unless they control them. That includes Trump too. See, and this is why Rashid and I continue to tell you that and I have to mute Rashid. I'm getting feedback from him. Okay, but this is what I'm saying. Trump, he talks the rhetoric, right? And he says everything that touches the disenfranchised of a portion of America. He says those things, but then he only goes so far when he's elected, right? And every now and then he would fulfill one promise here and there. And this is something that most people don't talk about. And I tell you, listen, don't listen to me about this. Just look at the policies. Now, if Obama and Trump were so different, right? Then why did, when Biden come into office, which everybody say that Biden is just Obama's lackey and Obama runs Biden, right? Why did they double down on Trump's policy? They didn't pull out of Syria, right? What is Trump doing? I mean, what is Biden doing with China? He's doubling down, isn't he? This is what I'm telling you. They're two sides of the same coin. Whenever a part gets disenfranchised, the powers that be let loose someone that can speak the lingo to the disenfranchised. And they'll allow them to do certain things to keep the disenfranchised following them and believing in them. This is what happened. The same thing happened with Obama. They knew that middle class and lower class white America, black America, brown and yellow America, and red America were so disenfranchised with the system. So what they did, they got somebody that was different from the average person. But the plans and the policies never changed. But he could talk the lingo to those people who were disenfranchised and who believed that he was going to initiate or bring in change. So the political system, the economic system, the educational system, right, is inherently corrupt to its core. And Engdahl had it right. And he talked about this long before the Ukraine crisis. And he told you that if Europe does not pry itself away from the grips of America in a NATO or the North Atlantic Organization, then they were going to go down with the ship. And they had to position themselves to go with the Eurasian bloc, or what we call the global South, right? He told you these things. And when was asked, could America and the West get out of this? He said, not even Jesus Christ could save them now, because they're in a situation that is never before seen. America is the greatest and the largest debtor in the history of the world. I had investor Gregory Mannarino on this show multiple times. And Gregory Mannarino told me that the debt that you see is not the debt that they have. The debt that they have is volumes greater than what they tell you. He said that, and that's not taking into account the derivative market. And as he elaborated on that, he told us that the derivative debt was, and check this, put your head around this, okay? Was between 2 and 5, not billion, not hundreds of billions, not trillions, not hundreds of trillions, between 2 and 5 quadrillion dollars. Now, if the world economy is roughly 50 to 70 trillion dollars, how in the world can they extricate themselves from a debt crisis that great? And that doesn't take into account all of the on-book debt and all of the other off-book debt. We're just talking about derivatives. So we have entered a cycle of total decline of this world order, and the people who have benefited the most from it are the ones who are willing to throw everybody else's lives away in hopes that they can prevail through a conventional or an economic or a political or even to a thermonuclear war against those whom they deem to be their rivals or their enemies or those who will supersede them in a new world order. That is what you call insanity. And it is written in the policy of America. And this can get no clearer when they have a policy that is stated MAD, MAD, mutually assured destruction, which means if I can't win, I'm killing everybody. That is the mind of a sociopath, a psychopath. But Engdahl said something. And he says that the cancer of the system, right, is rotting away the system. To understand what he means about the cancer of the system, first one must understand what cancer is. So we'll go to the definitions. Because a lot of the time when people are talking, it's best that you understand the verbiage. Because some people can say certain things with stuff that you're familiar with, but they can mean a totally different thing. So I want you to pay close attention to what the word cancer means. According to the dictionary on Google, the word cancer is a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body, a malignant growth or tumor resulting from the division of abnormal cells or a cell. Check this out. It means evil, blight, scourge, poison. Keep that in mind. Canker, sickness, and a disease. So the way he described the system, the global system run by America and the Western world, he says that it was evil. When he called it was just in it, right down to its very core, inherently cancerous, right? He was telling you that it was evil. It had a blight. It was a scourge on people who yearn to be free, on people who yearn to be able to live their lives outside of a debt burden or a debt-based system. He was telling you that the system itself is poisonous to all those who allow it themselves to be injected and inundated with capitalism is this and this. And he was telling us that it causes a sickness. It can be mentally, spiritually, emotionally, or physically. and it is a disease to all those who partake of it, according to the definition. And he said it causes rot, R-O-T, rot. So to get an understanding of exactly what he's talking about, all right, we go to the definition of rot. The word rot means to decay, to decompose, to disintegrate, to crumble, to corrode, deterioration, decline, okay, here we go, corruption, canker, or cancer. So we see rot and cancer are two and the same. And this is to the core of the capitalistic or the Western dominated system. You understand? And that is what I was trying to put forward to you when I was trying to show you this. Okay. So we'll go back to the comments and we'll see what the comments say. Let me unmute Rashid because he might have something to say, and I'm going to highlight a comment or two. Wow. Let's see. We'll go back up. We have so many comments. Let's see. It says, let me heat this one up. Let me light this one up right here. It says the EU's house is engulfed in flames and the Western media is like Frank Drebin in front of a blaze shouting at the crowd that there's nothing to see here. Right. It's on fire. And what is her name? Vanderlei and Ursula Vanderlei and Joseph Borrell and all of these so-called EU leaders are saying, we have it under control. They even have something that say, what was the slogan that they came out today? Squeeze the freeze or something like that. What they were saying that they were prepared for the people to freeze to support the war in Ukraine, which is absolutely insane. That is absolutely insane. So if we look at it through an analogy, let's look at this analogy. You have a person that you really don't know that for centuries or for years lived down the street from you or next door to you. And you have your children and your wife or your husband, your brothers and your sisters and your nieces and your nephew, your mom, your father, all of those in the same house with you. And it is a terribly cold winter. And you have a person over here saying, hey, if you sell me your firewood, I will use the money. Then you can use the money to support the people down the street that is freezing to death. Well, if you sell your firewood, what happens to you and your household? Huh? If you have no electricity, no gas, and you are foolish enough to sell the last bit of family security, which is your firewood, to support the livelihood down the street, what happens to you in a terrible winter? What happens to your household, your mom, your father, your wife, your children, or your husband, your nieces, your nephew, your grandchildren? What happens to them? The house down the street may be well heated, but what happens to you? You freeze to death. So the policies are insane policies made by insane delusional leaders who have been detached from reality. And they have no sense of empathy or sympathy for their constituents or the people who put them into their position. The next thing is going to happen is if they continue to do this, it won't be just protest. Protests will turn into riot. Rioting will turn into insurrection. And they'll be doing like they did Marie Antoinette. You see, this is where all of this is heading. So let's go a little bit further down and I'll unmute Rush. I muted you because it was a lot of noise in your background when you got up. So I'm going to unmute you. Okay, I'm going to unmute you. Yeah, okay. And here we are. Let's go to the next comment. It says, I got to put this up there. Innisfad said, yes, but the EU is absurd. Germany knows that the US, etc., sabotage Nord Stream, and they won't do anything about it. First of all, let me tell you, I'm gonna have to mute you again if you're taking care of some behind closed. They're trying to fix his microphone, so I'm gonna mute him. But listen, if if you say that, you say Germany knows that the U.S. And et cetera sabotage Nord Stream, and they won't do anything about it. That goes back to what we said before. Germany is still an occupied nation. Germany has a British base there. Germany has multiple U.S. bases there, and Germany has NATO bases there. Right? So, and think about all these decades after World War II, America is still there with military bases. So it's not too much that Germany can do in the sense of challenging American authority unless she's willing to go at her for real. Protest is not going to stop the empire. Confronting the empire just via media is not. I don't think people understand.
What can I say?
Hold on one second. Let me mute you. As I'm saying, I don't think people understand the mentality of the elite. They don't care about you, me, or anyone else. All they care about is pushing their policy of total domination. And if you are a victim of that, then so be it. That's what they think. That's their mind. And this is what we're trying to get across to the masses, because I watch all of these alternative media sites, and I rarely hear them go in on them, on the elite like this. And they should. But are you ready to talk? Are you ready? Okay, I'll unmute you in a second. And so our guy Innisfad says, even though their citizens will freeze this winter and industries closes. Now let me tell you about that, and I want to address that too. Poland is happy about that because Poland believes that they should be in Germany's position. And Poland believes that Germany should be subjected to them. So Poland is walking alongside the empire, the lapdog, that's the lapdog, and doing everything they can to help deindustrialize Germany, which so happens to be the economic powerhouse of Europe. They are the largest manufacturer and the largest economic engine of the European Union. And the Polish feel that they want to get back at Germany, but they also should be in the place with Germany. And if the German leaders feel so foolish as to go along with the deindustrialization of their nation, then maybe they deserve to be in flip positions with Poland. But it's not going to be something nice. So you have America waging war on Russia, China, Africa, Latin America, Eurasia, Asia, and also her so-called North Atlantic allies. She has committed currency war against Turkey, economic war against Turkey. She's doing it against any European nation that she sees as a threat to her being economic powerhouse. So she's making you subservient to her at all costs. And until the people there get that in their head, they'll continue to suffer that. I'm telling you this. I live amongst these. Some of these people I met. These people are sociopaths, you know, and I hope that gets through to the people over there. But probably not. The leadership will probably continue to be docile. But that's a good point that you made. Let's go further. Yes, it says, break the silence says, because she is the whore of Babylon. It's all so effing demonic. Hey, the truth is the truth. I can't argue with you about that. Hey, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Rashid is in 100%. Both Rashids are in 100% agreement with you. And then I'm gonna bring Rashid in just a minute. I have to scroll down a few more comments because I like the interaction with our viewers and subscribers. And also, can I say to you all, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you haven't hit the like button, would you please hit the like button? And would you please spread word of mouth about the show? YouTube takes us out of the algorithm. They suppress our numbers. For every 10 or 20 people we get subscribed, they unsubscribe. For 10, they unsubscribe 8 to 9. So it's hard for us to get that break, okay? And we get suspended often on the air, okay? So, and if you look back at some of the shows, you'll see us get suspended on the air, which is crazy. Here we go. I'll bring you in just a second. pull this one up. Yeah. By this is absolutely poignant, and I'll let Rashid address this one right here. By who's Goose the Moose? Man, I love that. I love that. Anyway, Rashid, who's the goose? Who's Goose the Moose? Who Goose the Moose? It's hard to say, but I love it. It's a tongue tire, but he says only their perverted view of democracy is the problem. And what he's talking, well, you have to understand they are sociopaths. I believe that. Would you address this the psychopathic nature of the leadership of the Western world? Oh, hold on. It muted you. It muted you back. It muted you back. Hold on. I told you they play with the controls. What? And now it won't let me unmute you. Hold on. You gotta be kidding me. Hold on. Let's see if it will. Can't unmute your guests because they chose to mute them. You muted yourself. All right,
What
now
about now?
Go ahead. Yes.
I had to call in the technician. Somehow my mic wasn't working, and you know how that is. You see me trying to fix it, and as soon as I come in and bring in my technician, my daughter, it started working. But that's how it is with this younger group.
I'm trying to. My hands are not as steady. Hold on, I'm trying to get it there. To show people. It was see from Scott Ritter. We were supposed to have it. So for those of you who see it, so I want you to know this was not no the clickbait. I want you to know that. I have multiple back and forth with him. So I just want you to know that this was not clickbait. So I showed you one of the emails. All right. So Rashid again.
And as you were saying, they constantly did. Now, if we were Kanye West, we'd never get another one of those nuts. Some rapper with his hair long as his mama, or green, purple, or yellow hair. They never ban those guys, and they never have problem with anything they say.
Right.
The minute we get on here and start talking our views because we got a different world view of stuff, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
But as far as the EU leadership, they're all psychopaths. That, like we've said before, they are. None of them really run their own country. See, this is what you got to understand. The leader of Germany is not the leader of Germany. The leader of Germany resides in Washington and London. Whatever they say, your leadership go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like international law. There's no such word as international law. They break it every time. Every day of the year, 365 days a year, the empire breaks the international laws. Mm-hmm. The international laws is for the other guy, not for me. Mm-hmm. I can make my own rules. And the Germany's leadership is not Germany is an occupied country. If you were a leadership, then why do you got all them troops in your country? If you were an independent country, why would you have that? Right? You can't. He. The leader of Germany has about as much power as the local supermarket. The manager of the local supermarket. He got about the same power. He got no power at all. He say something, they die. What did Biden say when that woman asked him about getting Nord Stream 2?
I'll play it. I'll go back to that what we played on the other. I'll play it for and this is for our guy Goose
the loose guy.
Yeah. That is a tongue tire. I'm gonna play the clip that we played on the other show. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. And this will show you that they had openly admitted to blowing up the pipeline. They were going to blow up the pipeline. I mean, there's no arguments about it. They don't had war games simulating attacking that pipeline. A week before that, they flew drones underwater.
And they found one drone still unexploded in there, and it's with NATO's hands. And Germany and they say, "Well, we know who did it, but we can't tell you."
So listen, I'm getting ready to play.
That shows you that he's no leader. He's a mayor.
Yeah,
he ain't even a mayor. He's a leader of a supermarket.
Yeah, he's what they alderman in a province of the empire. That's what he is.
Yeah, that's all it is.
So listen to what they say. This shows you, and the first person that comes up on here is a Polish person. Remember when the pipeline exploded? The first thing that ex-Polish politician said, "Thank you, America." And then the same day it exploded, Poland gets a pipeline open to them. So Germany has to be aware of this, and they have to be more mindful of this. Following the empire, like Rashid said, now you're in the clutches of a man that's going under, and all he wants, he's pulling you under with him. So listen to what this Polish person says, and then listen.
Before you play it, Scott Ritter said, "I can convict America in any court in America on circumstantial evidence alone."
Yeah. So listen.
Any court in America would convict America for committing this crime on not the evidence to prove. Any court would convict them on circumstantial evidence alone that they the one that did it.
And look, you're gonna see the Polish politician. You're gonna see Victoria Nuland. Remember how she comes in, and the Kagan Institute, and she also she has he has an institute. Her husband, Kagan, Robert Kagan, and he has about 2 or 3 institutes. Plus, he's a senior fellow at another institute, and she has just she just opened her institute. It's called the Institute for the Study of War, and they write policy for the United States government. You tell me if Joe Biden is running the government or these people behind closed doors doing it. But listen to this, okay? This is very important that you see.
They weren't all administration. Just like Brother Rashid said, they were in the Carter administration. I mean, they were in the Clinton administration. Bush. They were in the Bush administration. They were in the Obama administration. They were in the Trump administration. They never change. They never leave.
If it's not one, it's somebody that's related to them or under their tutelage.
His brother, his nephew, his wife, his husband, or his son, all the same people.
And so
who carrying on the same policy.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
As you know, energy is the cash cow that enables these kinds of military deployments. So Putin needs the energy to flow as much as the consumers need it. But more broadly, we have been counseling Europe for almost a decade now to reduce its dependence on Russian energy.
Today, we are also dealing with an act of sabotage. We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it is an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of the situation we are dealing with in Ukraine.
The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war.
As you all know, these pipelines weren't pumping gas into Europe at this time. NS2 was never operational, as you guys know. NS1 has not been operational for weeks because Putin has weaponized energy, and we have said this many times before. This just drives home the importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition.
And that's a lot to unpack, but listen, when we look at this situation, and the Polish guy say this is likely another escalation in the situation that we have in Ukraine. What is he talking about? He's talking about NATO is escalating. He's talking about the United States is escalating. They want to see this is a game of chicken here. And the problem with America and NATO's perception is they're still viewing their power and their influence from a lens of 1990. They don't view
when Russia was devastated.
Yes, and when they had all the power. And so now they are not looking at it as at today's view, when Russia is now a strong, independent power that has technology and weapons that surpasses anything that the West has. So that is one of the main things. That's right. That's one of the main things that they're not seeing. And so in this escalation, they don't realize that they will be the ones to be made to blink first. Because Vladimir Putin has made it very clear that he is not bluffing. He's not playing. How can, listen to me good. If America and NATO are allowed to take Ukraine, they could build bases right on Russia's borders. They could have missiles pointed at and anti-missile defense systems pointed at Russia, which could reach the missiles could reach Moscow within a minute or so. America was willing to go to war when Russia placed missiles in Cuba that were 100 miles away from Florida, not 100 miles away from Washington, D.C., but 100 miles away from Florida, one of the states in the United States. They were willing to go to nuclear war then because they said that their national security was threatened, even though they were the ones who put the missiles in Turkey, and they were called Person 2 missiles. They put them there, and Russia had warned them about those Person 2 missiles. And so when Russia decided to go,
the Soviet Union,
when the Soviet Union decided to put those missiles in retaliation in Cuba, America saw that they weren't playing, and they had been there long before U.S. intelligence had detected them. So the United States says that they would blockade Cuba, right? And
that's an act of war.
A blockade is a what? Say it again.
Act of war.
So the United States was willing to blockade Cuba and then go to nuclear war over missiles stationed in a sovereign nation, quote unquote, that resided 100 miles away from America. Remember what America and Europe says, that every sovereign nation should be able to make their own decisions on their livelihoods and their security. Well, Cuba had decided that Russian missiles there were in the best interest of their sovereignty. But America and NATO didn't see that then. They didn't.
But all the while, America was threatening to invade Cuba.
And then America goes now and places military bases on missiles and everything in Ukraine. And they disregard Russia's demand for them to move out of Ukraine, and that there was a national threat to Russia. And then they say Russia is using gas as a weapon, but they don't say that they're using sanctions as a weapon.
And then also Russia, the reason why Russia had to go in, because the Russian part of Ukraine, the Donetsk and them, they had raised up the shelling of them 1,000%. It's going from 4 or 5 rockets to maybe 1,000 a day. They was planning to invade, and the Russians could see this.
That was one, but it was another secret reason why Russia did what they did when they did it. And that was because NATO had put secret military bases in the Donbass. And if you go back and you look at when Russia struck the Donbass before troops moved in, when they hit them with the missile barrages, they took out NATO command structures there because NATO had refused to pull their bases out. And Russia had already talked with the United States and the a delegation from NATO, telling them that if they do not remove this, if war breaks out, the first place that they will hit will be those NATO command structures. And that's what they did. But that gets left out of the media, though. Nobody talks about that part, though. All right, because it's too much egg on the Western faces to acknowledge that Russia hit NATO base. But again, this geopolitical fight and tango is multi-layered, from dollar hegemony with gas and oil and commodities to doctrine, through arrogance and all of this stuff. And this is what's driving the world close to war. And a lot of people don't see or acknowledge the obvious stuff. Now, I'm going to play something. I haven't listened to this clip, but I know it's an uploaded clip. It's only like 32 seconds. But I want you to pay close attention to this. Because if I uploaded it here, even if I forget what it is, if I uploaded it here, then that means it struck something when I first saw it or first heard it, okay? So listen close to this.
Quite substantially, because the main companies, the main countries that use US dollar for international trade are the oil producers. They're by far the major volume of trade. So if oil producers are saying we don't need to use the US dollar anymore, then that weakens the power of the United States financial sector. And there are arguments as to that being one of the main reasons we're going into Iraq, not the Twin Towers, but to try to stop the formation of a non-US currency for international trade.
You never hear that on the mainstream media. MSN and CNN never say that. I wonder why.
Yeah,
when they were pushing that war to go to Iraq, you didn't hear none of that stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So again, I'm trying to get a few clips in because I want to talk on, and then I want to go down the comments again to get the people their fair chance to say as much as they can. I know time is of the essence, and I still haven't heard back from Scott, and I've emailed him and texted him multiple times, and I'm
Maybe
watching.
He's tied up with something else. You know,
that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Things happen around the world, and
and this man is important. You know, he's important, and he has a lot of engagements. Yeah, he has a lot
of hands in the fight. Everybody wants a piece of it.
Yeah. So
unlike us little two, nobody wants a piece of it. That's why we get thrown off every time you get a chance. Some rapper has more influence than us.
Yeah. So if he doesn't come on the show today, we will talk to him and we'll reschedule it,
on again.
And we'll try to get him on again. And remember that we're also supposed to have we'll try to see the schedule. I don't know what time it will be. When I find out the time, then I will try to schedule it. We'll have founder of Scholars for 911 Truth, and also the author of I think 12 books, and he's a former colonel in the Marines, and he was an intelligence officer, James Fetzer. His name is James, but he goes by Jim Fetzer. So
I thought you were talking about Kevin Barrett.
No, Kerry Barron is the co-founder of Scholars for 911 Truth. We had him on last week, but we'll have Jim on soon. As a matter of fact, he texted me and said he needs to get on because he has something that he really wants to talk about before the midterm election. So we'll try to get him on. But again, we're going to play another clip And we want you to pay close attention to this, okay? We're going to play, and all of these clips that we're playing right now, they're short because I want you to see for yourself what people are saying around the world, what they're saying in the news, because it's one thing to hear it from us. And then it's another thing to hear it from people who are well connected, okay? So just listen to this.
Well, it's certainly, if we want to talk about expanding right now, on the Kyrgyz-Tajik border, there have been shots fired, scuffles, people dying as on part of the former Soviet Union. Georgia has also been, let's just say, they're still bitter about losing the 2008 war, and there have been rumblings from there. As we can see, Nancy Pelosi went to Armenia to try to get the Armenians all fired up again over the Nagorno-Karabakh situation, to get the Armenians to drop out of their strategic alliance with Russia and, well, with Azerbaijan, which could start a conflict there. There have been some somewhat mysterious explosions around Transnistria, which is a breakaway part of Moldova, much in the same way that Donetsk and Lugansk were breakaway parts of Ukraine. The Transnistria is very pro-Russian. There's another part of Moldova called Gagauzia, which is also in a similar condition, and there are already protests against the current president, Maya Sandu, happening within Moldova. So all along most of the border of the former Soviet republics, we see that there are some significant acts of violence, gunfire, explosions, and all sorts of problems and threats. But of course, when we get towards China, North Korea, and Mongolia, there's all quiet on the Eastern Front. So yes, there definitely is a risk of things expanding, and to an extent, it looks like Washington is doing its best to pull the foreign power strings to make that happen.
So we hear that. Now let's go into the next one. I'm gonna try to get these right back so y'all can make the comments on it, and we can interact before time expand.
One second. With this, what he was just saying. That's the reason why Russia got to take Odessa to go up into Transnistria, right at the borders, to stop all of what he's talking about.
Right.
It's like he says, all interconnected.
Yeah.
The West and the CIA and the British Mossad and the Israeli Mossad and the British MI6 are trying desperately to destabilize Iran, to try and foment cover revolutions, to try and foment ethnic strife. They're trying to, by any means necessary, create conflict and division and animosity in order to break Iran apart and exploit those fractures into something that could be used to destabilize and tear the country apart, and ultimately rape and pillage Iran and steal its natural resources. So any kind of protest or division should be recognized as a foreign infiltration operation. And the Iranian leadership, the religious leadership, the academic leadership, the political leadership, and the media in Iran should expose and condemn any of these protests as an act of foreign intervention.
And I played that one right there to show you, we just heard about around the tip of Russia and China and how America is destabilizing all of this. Well, remember that Iran, they lump Iran into that Eastern Bloc, and Iran has just joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So that is why they're doing it. They're trying to weaken Russia and China by weakening their allies. And if you weaken, and this has been a long process, because remember, Gaddafi was a Russian ally. Remember, Tunisia looked to Russia. Remember, Egypt once looked to Russia. Yeah. Assad looked to Russia. And
Saddam Hussein
look to Russia.
Iraq
all of these
look
things.
to Russia.
So listen to this.
What you were just saying about this picture, the clip you just showed, people must remember always the Shah was in Iran for many years.
And he has a
lot of people that he brought out here in Southern California, a lot of them fled from there, but they left a whole lot of people in there who still want the Shah's way of doing business in Iran.
You know, I'm gonna speak on this part right here real quick, and then I'll go to the clip. You know, I do a lot of martial arts, and so my favorite martial arts is something called Nabard combat. What it is grappling, striking, and kung fu modernized, right? That's one of my favorites. I do Krav Maga, black belt in Taekwondo. I do Jiu-Jitsu and Judo also. But I'm saying this in Nabar, our instructor, he's Iranian, but he left when the Shah was overthrown, right? And he would always try to pick me, to see where my mind was or whatever like that. And he was like, "What about those mullahs over there? They're blood." He said, they'll kill anybody. I said, "But didn't the Shah do that?" Yeah, but it's but because he was a beneficiary of it. Let me tell you something. Even though he didn't really acknowledge this, I remember talking to him one day, and it was unrelated to that conversation right now that I was talking about. And he was saying that when he was in Iran, he had something like a 23-bedroom home, and his mother was well-to-do. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm putting two and two together. Okay, he was a beneficiary of the old regime. And I asked him one time, I said, when is the last time that you've been back home? He told me since the revolution took place. I was like, wow. So I understood. So we have to understand that there's a lot of disgruntled people, and they have family members that are still over there.
Same thing with Cuba and the people in them descendants in Florida.
Miami.
Those people, all over there. They benefited from Batista.
Yeah.
And then when Fidel Castro came in, they became instantly poor. And communism. Now, while you was over there collecting all of the benefits of Western capitalism, it was all right. But when Fidel Castro come in and help the poor people, it's a shame. They all against all Cubans. Castro did this to me. Castro, what did he do? He took away my lofty perch from robbing the poor people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now let's go to this one, and then we'll double back and go into the comments.
Well, I mean, there's a question of what are they doing and what are they able to do? What do they want to do and what are they able to do?
Right.
Look, there's no question that the United States provoked a confrontation, a conflict in Ukraine. No question. There's literally no debate about it. It was our irresponsible push for the expansion of NATO, combined with a counter reset policy. I mean, I remind everybody of the reset policy that was implemented by, or at least attempted to be implemented by, the Obama administration in 2009, the famous or infamous red button. Change policy, promote the political fortunes of Dmitry Medvedev, and sink Vladimir Putin. When that didn't work, the United States went into overdrive to destabilize Vladimir Putin, supporting people like Navalny, bringing about the 2014 Maidan coup.
So now, you heard what Scott Ritter had to say about the situation as he described so aptly. But we'll go to the comments. And Who's Goose the Moose says more and more countries are catching on that the West is only for the West. About time, I'd say. True. And the question is asked, hey, are you guys American? Yeah, we were born in America. And he resides in California, and I reside in the state of Florida. It says, I'm American living in the EU. Well, you can tell us best of how the situation is over there. This is by NS5. And in another one it says, nice. It is as bad as some say. And let's see. Coming winter worries him. Worries. Let's see. The screen is blacking out and coming back. And let's see. Oh my God, I got to put this up here. And I think they were having a conversation, and he says, not yet, but gas is about $8 a gallon, and electricity costs have just doubled. So far, food is still widely available. I live in a rural community, so it will be worse in the city. You got that right. And then he says, The calm before the storm. Winter will be the test. And it says, let's go down. He said they've decided to go down with the ship, talking about Europe. And but Rashid, you know when you said that drowning man and how he grabbed the
drowning man is dangerous. Anybody that goes near him, you're gonna drown with it. Because he's gonna grab you and pull you down.
Up here, you see, he says he's from America. Look what he says. He's in Europe now. They've decided to go down with the sinking U.S. ship. That's something. Yeah, and I hope and break the silence. Share the videos, please. Spread the word. We want you to share the videos. We're not like other people that get mad if you take a video and put it up there. We're not. Share the video. Okay, you have our permission to go share the video, and please spread the word, everyone. Now let's go down a little bit. It says, "Oh man, let me go here." Who Goose the Moose says in Canada we pay $6 a gallon, but made to think it's normal. It's normal. Russia thing always costly. I think that's what he meant. Here it says there's a raise in heating gas this month, 30%. Good Lord. I figure we will feel all this last. And probably so. I know Europe is about to feel it.
It's the same thing here in California. We got the highest gas in the country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Everybody else might be $3 and $4. Our gas is $6 and $7. And the further you get away from California, the cheaper the gas gets. And all of the oil refineries are here.
Right. And in Louisiana. Hey, check this out. Inisfar, you said, is it possible to put the link to that video up? What video? Which one? Let me know. And if I can't put it up, then I will go and look for it and try to put it in the comments of this video later on today. So just let me know which video you're talking about. Let's go further. Break the silence. I think they might nuke the world in the end when they realize that nothing they do will stop the multipolar world. They'll try, but they won't be successful. That's what I feared for years and years, and it seems to be coming true. Listen to me. There will be a nuclear confrontation, and I'm not going to go into depths of it. There will be a thermonuclear confrontation, but it will not be the whole world. Now, there will be some fallout because, you know, the nuclear clouds and stuff, but there will be a nuclear conflict, and it will be between the United States and Russia, but it'll be in Europe. It will be in Europe. It'll be confined to the continent of Europe over this stuff. And you'll see as the pieces play out, get put on the chessboard, you'll start seeing it more vivid and more clearly. Okay. See, Europe is a pawn in the game. But let's go a little further. Let's see. Break the silence says, will those who run the empire nuke the world? Oh, we have that. Oh no, nuke the world over the ashes, or do you guys think that in the end of all of this, the empire can dissolve with no, absolutely no. America is not going to dissolve with grace, without warring against that is not in her MO. I want you listen to me good. America knows only one thing. That's war. As Rashid said at the beginning of the show, she's been here for roughly 250 years, 2.5 to 3 centuries. And there's only 9 years of her existing where she has not committed a war. Now you let that sink in, and then you ask that question again.
Me and the brother here are schooled in a different version of events that the world thinks going. We see something from we got a different teacher. And our teacher told us all of the things that's going on. Nothing of what's going on surprises us.
Right.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Matter of fact, if it did not happen, then we would be surprised.
We'd be surprised. That's right.
We would be real surprised.
And we talk about it constantly. Our track record showed that we talked about these events before they took place because we saw them coming into being.
And our teachers in Islam taught us what would take place, gave us the time limit that it would take place, told us how it would take place, and like a blueprint right up to the end of it.
Right.
That's why we know that it's going to happen only in Europe, nowhere else.
Oh, and now, Enisfar said, I somewhat disagree about Trump. I think that Trump's winning was a surprise for them, but he surrounded himself with the wrong people. Now, I see why people say that, but again, listen, he rubbed elbows with all of these guys. You can Google him at elite parties with Clinton, with all of these guys. Now, listen, if you go and do a study, I think we have a video on this site, right? And I think it's from last year. A couple of videos. As a matter of fact, I'll do the research for you. Okay, just sit right here. Please do not leave. Let me. I might be able to pull up the videos for you and tell you they're short videos. They're only like what you say, bro? What do you say?
Brother Michael is leaving. Step in for a second, brother.
Is that Brother Rashid?
Yes, sir. How's it going today?
Is this Brother Rashid?
Yes. How's it going today?
So you the brother with all this information?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're a walking bundle of information.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
So when I have a question, guess I'm going to. I'm going to that brother. Are you in Florida right now?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
I'm going to that brother in Florida.
Okay.
Much respect.
Thank you so much. Hey, listen. I have a blessed day. I'm trying to pull up something for one of our people in the chat. Hey, tell the brother be safe and be blessed.
He says be safe and be blessed.
Let me see. Let me see. Where is it? You mean I'm searching something for Enisfar. Hold on 1 second. The Red Pill Diaries. Everybody who's listening on the channel, please bear with me. I'm trying to
but
find
also the guy, the very guy that
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second.
Why you searching for?
I know I wanted to tell him something. Give me a second to find it. I was gonna say that, and I was gonna let you say what you have to say. Give me a second to find this. It's on our main page, and please do not go. It shouldn't take me long. It take me about 2 or 3 minutes. Just give me a second, and I'm going to unmute Rashid so he can say his thoughts. Let's see. Are you unmuted? Oh, I think you're unmuted. All right.
Sheldon Adelson, right? The Jewish billionaire. He was a part of the clique. Yeah, he was a part of the clique. So it's just like a horse that's racing, right? Mm-hmm. The owners own both of the horses. So whoever crossed the finish line, I still win.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton win. Donald Trump win. I'm still controlling both of them.
Right.
They still gonna do my agenda because all they are nothing but managers at the supermarket. Matter of fact, Jimmy Carter said that back when after he got out of office. He said the man at the local supermarket got more power than I do.
I'm going back for the election thing, and I know it's back then, so that's what I'm doing. Just hold on. It takes YouTube sometime a second to load certain videos, and I'll tell you the name of the videos where you can go look and get some of Trump's history, and then you can do your research, and then you can see whether or not I'm telling you the truth. Okay?
Like he said, Hillary Clinton, him and Clinton and Hillary Clinton, they're all buddies. They all party together. That's why Bush, old man Bush and Clinton, after they got out, they were real tough. They all party together. It's a Mutt and Jeff game on the public.
That's right.
I'm here. I go out and I'm gonna talk bad about your mama and your father, and you talk bad about my mom and my father. And if you win, I'll accept your winning, and and then we can become buddies after after it ends. Or if you win, I will be with you, and I'll win, and you will be with me. But the thing of it is, see, Trump was not a part of that system.
Right.
He don't feel that Trump. I go back to what George Bush Jr. and Al Gore in 2000. Now, if anybody had a reason to say that the election was stolen and stuff, it should have been Al Gore.
Right.
Right? Because of the hanging chads and all that. But when it went to the Supreme Court, Al Gore stayed in line and did what he was supposed to do because he was a politician. He won. That would not come out of Clinton. Come out of Trump. Trump is not from that school. He will not say that, the other guy. Like he said, I lost to that guy. That guy is a walking zombie. How can I lose to that guy?
And I'll let you finish your thought. Let me tell you, one of the videos is called Red, R-E-D, Mafia. And it says the making of the Trump phenomenon. It's 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and it tells you his connections. And then it says, another one says Straight Gangster, the making of the Trump phenomenon. They're right behind each other. They are 1 year ago on the Red Pill Diaries. And it goes into his connections with certain people, okay? And what I'm saying is, listen, we are apolitical. So we don't care. We call them, like, I talk about Obama, I talk about Biden, I talk about the rest of them, and I call it ace and a spade, and so does Rashid. And what we're trying to do is get everybody to realize that this is a game that's being played. The three-card model, this is the game.
Donald Trump was taught by Roy Cohn.
That's right.
Roy Cohn was the mob's lawyer. Wasn't named Marlesky, the Lucky Lucci, all of the mob that set up? He was their lawyer. Roy Cohn was also Joe McCarthy with the Red Scare and all that back in the 50s. He was his lawyer.
Right.
And he the one that schooled Donald Trump. He was a mob lawyer. And that's how Donald Trump, that's the way he thinks. If you see him, he does a lot of stuff predicated on the New York mafia, the Dons, or how he think the way they think.
Yeah.
What do they say? What do they say? They never talk on the phone. Don't want to talk on the phone, and they want to write stuff down. And when they get finished writing it down, Donald Trump is flushing it down the commode. Just the way a mob lawyer, a mob would think, a mob man would think.
His father was one.
His father come from that stuff, but he learned his props under Roy Cohn.
Right. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. I'm gonna see if they will let me just pull it up for you.
I know it gets real with a lot of people that when they see us coming here and talking, and we ain't talking like the regular people of our country, our people here in America. We ain't talking about football, baseball, basketball, none of that sports stuff. And we're not sitting up here talking about no rapping and music, and that's the furthest thing from our mind. We got our mind set on what's to come.
Here we are. Here we are.
And what?
Okay, finish it. Okay.
No, I just said we got our mind on what we got a blueprint of how this thing is going to play out, and our teacher has been 100% right up until the day. And all we expect is that other shoe to fall, and then everything will happen exactly what he told us.
That's right. Hey, for those of you who are listening, the entire video, it was broken up into 3 parts, and then we did 2 small clip videos, the ones that I told you about. But you can see the whole video. It's called The Global Outlook with author, journalist, radio personality Kevin Barrett. It is over a year ago. So if you want, and it goes into, we talk about Biden, we talk the corruption and the connections with Biden and the mafia. We talk about Obama and his corruption and his beginnings. We talk about Trump and his and how they're interconnected and 2 sides of the same coin. Go into that and you can look at this. See, we are apolitical. We don't care any which one of them gets in politics because the political system is corrupt from jump. So let's go down a little bit. I got to mute you, Rashid, because I hear your phone doing it. Hold on one second. And you said, and that's why they had to ensure that Trump didn't win 2020 election. Yeah, listen, he has his connections, but again, as Rashid always says, Trump is not a natural politician, so he goes off script, and he can't see himself bowing to people that he sees as less than him, like Joe Biden. He calls Joe Biden a shield or walking dead body or a zombie or something like that. So of course that, and besides that, he I'll say that for another video. I was going to go a little bit deeper, but I'll say that one for another video. Let's go down the list. It says, nukes will start from a rogue, I think, normal war, unless Biden backs up. I can see. Well, the war in Europe is going. This right here is just low level. It's going to fester, and it may balloon a little bit, but mark my words on this. It's not ready to blow out into a full-blown war just yet. But when it does, it will be over Russia. And see this thing that's going on? America and Russia are fighting over the Baltics and the Caucasus, the former Soviet republics. And as that intensifies, that will be the catalyst for that thermonuclear war, because when this war breaks out, Russia is going to dig so deep in America's backside militarily on the continent of Europe that America is going to get exposed as a shallow power, and she's going to resort to a thermonuclear exchange. That is how that's going to play out. But let's go further down here a little bit. It says,
can we speak on that?
Hold on one second, brother. Hold on one second. I have to answer this guy that I was trying to get to, that I was telling you to hold on. Hold on one second. Let's see. It says, what? It's kind of sad that it took on. Oh, okay. I see what he said. Here it is. I see what it says. Right here. Oh, it's kind of sad that it took only 250 years for the American experiment to fail. Well, it was in the decline ever since 1914 when they instituted that Federal Reserve and all that stuff like that. It was in decline then. When World War I broke out and stuff. What we're seeing with America. And we see symptoms of death and decline. It's and I liken it to like a snake. Do you know how you see on those wild programs that the snake is caught by this survivor guy and he cuts off the head, and he buries the head because the fangs still can inject venom hours and hours after the snake head has been cut off. But even as the head is cut off and buried, the body still contorts and moves for hours and hours after its death, right? What we've been seeing for the last few decades is the empire contorting. And what proved to be a fatal year for the American empire was 1965. 1965, America had robbed her quarters and her dimes of its silver. And then she went to the extremes by 1970 and robbed her half dollars of silver. So by 1970, her coins were no longer composed of silver. 1971, America started up in the printing press. And we must remember that prior to all of that, back in the war, remember when gold was confiscated earlier on in the, what is it, the 30s or the 40s? That was a default, but nobody talks about that default. That was a default. But anyway, we go further. We're in 1971 now. The printing press are humming. America's humming. And so Charles de Gaulle, who was the general in the French military and became the leader of France. He became the president, I know. And he saw and he kept watching how America was spending and printing money and making promises to do this and do that. And Charles de Gaulle said, hold on, wait a minute. You are printing more money than the gold reserves that you now hold. And Nixon said, there is no need to be worried about this. He said, our word and our dollar is as good as gold. So Richard Nixon said that, and Charles de Gaulle said, well, if that's the case, then give me gold. Return, let me redeem my U.S. currency for the gold that is promised on the redemption certificate. And that forced Richard Nixon to take the United States off the gold and silver reserve. All right. And so from that point on, they had to do something, and they transitioned a few years later to the petrodollar. They needed something to back the dollar. And so as each economic crisis came, you saw the America printing presses go. But the more she printed, the less the dollar was worth, and the more problems that were coming in the future. Even today, look at her. When she does budget, she projects the budget deficit into the future, because she has no money to pay for it right now. All of that is coming, but it started back then. And all of those, and the body was still contorting, and everybody thought that she was unrivaled. She was a superpower. She was the richest nation. She was this, she was that, she was this. And now you're getting a look at the emperor with no clothes on. She is collapsing, she's falling, and we're watching the world seize up and die, the old world order. You says, oh, that's what it is. Okay, that's what I was scrolling down for. I thought you would say, that's what it's called. Seize, not freeze. That's what the European politicians said. Seize, not freeze. Okay. It says, or something like that, talking about seizing Russia's foreign assets instead of freezing them. Yeah, they are trying to, because they are so they're in such dire straits now economically, Rashid, that now they're trying to justify. Remember at the beginning, they said we couldn't seize it. It was illegal. It's against international law. It's against all norms. And now they're trying to find a way to justify their seizure of $400 to $600 billion in assets.
Because
what say you about
the economy is crashing. It's going
right
down. And they'll do anything. Just how the American is. As long as it benefits him, he'll step up and do it. But if somebody else does, you can't do that. It's against international law. But when he do it, it ain't against international law. I get back to the reason why me and this brother think the way we do is because of that.
There's a book called The Fall of America. If you get that book, you'll see everything. As a matter of fact, let me say something about that book, okay? On page 170, to 173, he goes in this book, he goes into what to expect in the Middle East. In the Middle East, listen to me good. In the Middle East, he talks about the war that's going to take place in the Middle East. He talked about the United States and England being pushed out of the Middle East, and how America would lose her allies, and how the American arrogance would cause the fall of the Western world. And we're watching that. And so when you read that, there's no denying any of this.
And he's what he's saying is what Ingdog and Gerald Salente, he said it 50 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, snaps. What in the world just happened here? Hold on, let me try to get Rashid back in the stream. Why? I want to know, YouTube, why did you take him out of the stream when he was talking mid-sentence? Or StreamYard? Why was he taken out of the stream mid-sentence? Let me try to get him back on here real quick. Oh my God, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. But you see what we go through. I'm trying to get it. I see him in the booth. And I'm pressing to add to stream. Let's see, add to stream. What? It kicked him out of the. What? What in the world? I hit add to stream and it says kick out of the stream. I've never seen it like this before. Listen, since Rashid is kicked out of the stream, we're gonna close this stream pretty soon, and we're just gonna let me close up like I often close up. Listen, the world that you've known, you will soon know no more. The global order is falling, without a doubt. I want to put something up so that all of you all can get to. Let's see, video file. And then I don't think it's fair for me to stay on the air if they're kicking him off the screen. Hold on one second. So I'm going to get off the air, but I want to put something up real quick before I do. This right here. Let me see. If they kick him off, I'm gonna have to get off the screen because I'm not gonna do this without him. I think it's wrong. I think it's absolutely wrong for them to take him out of the queue box. And crazy is it says add to stream. I hit add to stream. It says Rashid has been kicked out of the queue. That is absolutely crazy. I haven't seen that in a lifetime. So okay. I know. Oh, he's telling me he's back in the queue. I'm scared to hit the add to stream because when I hit the add to stream the last time, it kicked you off there. So if I hit the add to stream again, you may get kicked out again. So I don't know what to do. But I want you all to look at this. These are some of our platforms to get on. We deal. We talk about truth. We deal with truth. We address problems that no one, whether it's in the Black community, you know how some Black people don't want to talk about issues, like we address that. Whether it's white people that don't want to address certain issues that concern white people, or whether it's Asian people don't want to address, we address all of that stuff. We talk. It's a no holds bars, and what we do, we put the mirror up to everybody, to us, to you, to them, to them, and once you look at yourself and you look at the situation, and there's nobody else to blame, then you got to be a man or a woman and deal with you. Okay. Up here, and I'm scared to bring Rashid in. I'm going to try it, but I hope that they don't knock him out the thing. But we got to get off the air anyhow. We have another video we have to do in this, but I want you to look at this stuff here. Okay. These are our channels. Go to those channels, sign up. We would really appreciate them. We got a lot of stuff coming out for you all. As always, Rashid, stay in the queue. As always, we say, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And mama, I love you, mama. Peace, everybody. Thank you.